What's going on, guys? Another episode of HLTV confirmed, and it could also be called Everyone Hates Prof, because he's not here and he was wrong, and there's going to be a lot of abuse coming his way, no doubt. I am your host, James Banks, and joining me is only three of us this time around. It's going to be Sponge and Striker. And Striker, you got to chill out. You weren't at Blast, were you? So how's your event been? How's your life been in the week that's just gone by?
Been pretty cool. I mean, Sao Paulo wasn't even that much of a time zone difference, so my sleep schedule, I mean, I've been on America's sleep schedule for the past month or so it doesn't even matter, but you know, got pretty good sleep.
And Chad, you're in the same boat as me, just traveling back, but you've gone and you've lived in every part of the world now.
Yeah, it's weird. I lived in America, I lived in Europe, I lived in Australia. Now I'm kind of living on some little tiny island somewhere. But I think it's really important for us to note that we made it and Prof unfortunately did it. And I'm not upset that, you know, with stuff he said about Ents, because I agree with the stuff he said about Ents. I just wanted to really rag on him about the fantasy. That's where I wanted to go with this. I wanted to make sure that I rubbed in all of the because look, mate, that's where the real one-upmanship comes in.
Yeah, and this is the thing, right? He's luckily got away with this. So it just means when we get on to the next episode, we have to remember to give him some shit and see what he's actually going to be able to reply. Because as of right now, he's just going to be eating a lot of abuse for making a lot of wrong moves, right? And especially, how do you go that many minus points? I know we'll get on to the fantasy side of things, but he really ballsed up, didn't he?
I think Cold Zero just like with the worst.
I mean, Cold Zero. I mean,
Jesus.
yeah, Cold Zero. Picking Cold Zero was like a safe choice for him, right? And he gets fucked by him going like 0.83 rating over the course of the tournament. Basically, Cold Zero having the worst tournament that he's ever had. So that's, I mean, that's kind of understandable that he went that bad.
All right, well, let us get into our breaking news. Lucas, hit it.
Drop it.
There we go. Thank you very much, Lucas. So we're going to be starting off with Virtus.pro making their change. And I am playing catch up on all of this because literally just getting through it all. So we're gonna see. How do you even say that dude's name? TOAO? TOAO?
I say TOA, but like it's the one and only. It stands for the one and only, and I guess it's the one and only to just get booted. Because if people don't remember, he actually got cut from AGO. He didn't leave AGO. Like he got cut from AGO, and then VP picked him up. So now he's being cut from VP as well. And it's a bit of an interesting one, right? Because VP have had terrible results. Like their results are just like they haven't done anything. It's not. I don't know if him being the in-game leader is the problem with this team. I don't know how to, you know, if it could be said either way realistically. But you look at this team and you think, well, okay, he got dropped from AGO, Snatchy left AGO, and now AGO is still the best Polish team. So it's like you guys fucked up, I guess.
Yeah, there's something going on wrong there for sure, and it's just like. It's basically just the VP tag at this point, I feel like. But I mean, it kind of... Look, you have to kind of take into consideration how he's been performing, TOAO, at least, I mean. Because he averaged, like, Neo levels of ratings, like, ever since he got added into this lineup. So I guess, like, the other players have just felt like, well, if he's not going to be a firepower upgrade over, like, a Neo or over a Taz from back last year, it doesn't really make sense to keep him. So I feel like there's just, I don't know, they'll just go back into Poland and try to figure out who they can get, because it's probably going to be quite hard to find an in-game leader. So it might as well just end up with Snack just taking over leadership again for the 10th time in Virtus.pro and just having a different player again.
But when you look at these four players, right? You look at the four players they have right now. They got Mihu, Snatchy. Obviously, he was doing good things in AGO with AWP, Bialy, and Snacks. Now, it's up to Bialy and Snacks to return to some of their form of the past, right? For them to even have a chance, because Mihu is actually performing relatively good, even when they still had Neo and Pasha in the team, right? So you have to think about this whole roster, and you question, it can't be a motivation thing anymore, right? Well, maybe it is. Maybe because they stayed under the VP banner, maybe they kept getting a decent salary. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe they need to... You thought at this point they would have been humbled, because you see what happens in the other regions. Like, I think the French scene is now definitely on the way back up. The Swedish is kind of simmering, but it feels like there's maybe light at the end of the tunnel if one or two more roster changes come in. Whereas the Polish scene... These guys who were once like the team we look towards to win majors, you know, or to be competitive against the other top dogs, like I want to bring up their results because it's just dog shit. Like, well, hold on one second while I find it. Their most recent results, here we go. All results for VP. So, okay, so they lost 2-1 to North in ECS. They've actually, in ECS against better teams, they actually looked okay. I remember watching some of their games. They were taking a map. They did it against someone else as well. Was it FaZe? Like in ECS as well. So in their opening rounds, they didn't look really bad. But then you look at some of their losses. There was like a streak of losses for these guys. I remember looking at it a while ago. Okay, so they lost 16-12 to Sprout, 16-10 to Fours, 16-12 to Valiant. Valiant's so good, right? So that one's okay. 16-11 to Uruguay. They lost 16-9 to Epsilon, 16-6 to Expert. They lost 16-8 to Isaac O'Bors. Like 16-4 to Spirit. This is not even remotely competitive, and it's in the realms of online. We know VP always used to struggle there, but it's not even reminiscent of anything to look forward to, and I think that's the real problem here. I don't know where do you go? Who are you going to pick up? There's obviously a lot of players in Poland, but I say most of the good ones are either in Taz's team or in Ego right now.
And that's one of the things I was going to bring on, right, about the Polish scene and the kind of struggles they're going through with this. Because, yes, this team's not meeting expectations, but I honestly didn't expect this team to meet expectations of what people thought was going to happen here. Like, for me, this team, and along with a lot of the other Polish teams, lack that kind of authority leadership figure. Like, the only person I can look to when I think of a player that could come in and do that is potentially Taz, because he's got the experience, and okay, he can still obviously play pretty well, but he's a player that is a leader. He can bring that motivation back into players and keep the spirits alive. Because I just feel what happens with these Polish teams at the moment is everyone's kind of just out of sync, and no one's really got a kind of a goal. That's what it seems. It's like, oh, we can do well at the beginning, and then we just drop right back off. And I'd like to see a bit more of the kind of hunger start to kind of be seen from these guys.
I mean, they just have to get out of the slump. I feel like it's just kind of a snowball effect from back in the day. They just have no confidence. They can't really figure out what the lineup's going to be. It's just all kind of gathering up and going against them over and over and over. I feel like it's going to be hard to break that streak, though. And I feel like lineup changes are not going to do it because, like you said, but there aren't that many options, especially not outside of Devils 1 and Ago, because you basically have like, in terms of in-game leaders, you basically have like a choice of Taz, who's probably not going to come back. Why would he? Unless I don't know.
Fuck that for a joke, man. Like the way that he got booted from that team. Like obviously,
exactly. Like that's not something that he'll get over easily. And then you have Furlan, probably like somebody like Furlan from Ago. Furlan is still the in-game leader, right? I feel like. I hope I'm not wrong in this, but I mean he was in-game leading before, so I assume he still is, and he is definitely an option. So it's like you have these two options that are realistic on like a performance level, and then like further down the line in Poland, I don't even know.
Like right now, VP are ranked as the 4th best Polish team. Like, what the fuck is going on there? That is insanity.
A big fall off. But is that also part of the whole reason? Like, you remember kind of VP, they kept the lineup for so long, then we didn't really get to see too much talent come through until like the last year or two, really. Like, they're in a position where they held on so long, and now it's kind of imploded, and there's just a lack of options. And you've cut ties with people.
Yeah, I think at this point, it's not anything that needs to be on our radar. You know what I mean? Like, they're just going to have to grind through, and then if they eventually start getting some good results again, then maybe we'll perk our heads up and take a look around and go, oh, okay, well, they're back now. Oh, Snacks has, been able to find a bit of form again, and Bialy doing the same. I honestly think right now the best player in the entire Polish scene is either probably Mihu or Gruby. Like, watching Gruby play at WSG, I got to commentate like a lot of his stuff firsthand, and he was the most consistent. Like, he would have a couple of rounds that were flashy here, there, and everywhere, but he was consistently dropping like bombs. Like he was going and getting the job done for his team in that tournament. So, like we mentioned, obviously, historically, people would want to gravitate towards the VP name, but now you'd just be stupid to do so, right? Like, can you imagine if VP came to you, and even if it was a lot of money, it's like career suicide at this point. I don't think it's a good decision. Snatchy must be fucking kicking himself, because if he stayed where he was with Ego, he would be having better results. But maybe he's happy with the money, Maybe that's easy for some people. I like money, and maybe he does too. But I think winning, and especially when you're in the infancy of your career towards the top, you'd want to kind of stay in a position where you're at least looking competitive.
You have to. I don't know what kind of contract they also got, because look at what has been happening with Virtus.pro for, let's say, the past 2 years, right? And I don't see the organization just giving out super long contracts to just like basically test lineups anymore. So you have to think that their contracts, they will have some sort of a paragraph about like performance, or just, you know, being benched is probably going to be really taxing on their salary as well. So with that in mind as well, like there's probably not a real possibility to join Virtus.pro from like you say a better team like Gago or Devils One.
But you can get a Mercedes-Benz.
Well, that's probably not the case anymore either, is it?
And that probably actually built a little bit of resentment in the team, I would say.
For sure.
Like, imagine just giving one player, you know, actually, now that if you think about that concept more, we're going to go on a tangent here, boys, strap yourself in. In Counter-Strike, unfortunately, people shouldn't be paid the same in a team. And I know people are going to sit there and go, Chad, but what are you talking about? It's a team. Well, if you pay a team all the same, then and you sign them all on the contracts at the exact same time, then the players have all the power. And as an ex-player myself, and looking at the way that Counter-Strike is now, you know, going, I don't think that the players should have all the power anymore. They definitely need to have some power, but we always say on this podcast that we think coaches should be deciding who is, you know, in the roster, who gets put on the bench, who gets brought in. And if you make sure that these people are signed on different contracts, and obviously they're going to talk about how much they make, right? Like, that's just the nature of the beast. But for example, if you looked at a team, obviously Navi's the best example of this, right? You look at the team of Navi, and then you could go, well, Simple obviously is the best player in the world, so we're going to pay him a shitload because of that. But you can look at Zeus as well from a marketing perspective, and maybe in the server he doesn't necessarily put in the biggest numbers, but he contributes from the leader perspective. We spoke about at the major that he had a much bigger contribution, and that they looked a lot more like a team. But then you look at what he does on social media and the kind of exposure that he brings to the Navi brand. So all these different things have to be factored in. So I don't know where I was going with this and how I was tying that into the conversation we were just having. Oh yeah, about Taz and the Mercedes.
Yeah, the whole... Yeah,
maybe the fact it was so public, you know, maybe that's the issue. I think, like, obviously going forward, you're going to have marquee players. We had marquee players back in the CGS. I know that's not a great example of anything, but, you know, if you're more valuable for whatever reason to an organization, then of course you should get paid more. It's the same with like a broadcaster thing. Like, if you have a bigger social following, or you know, like, there's a lot of different aspects there. It's almost the same with everything in life, right? So once we get out of the mentality that we're signing a team, like we're signing 5 players, and you think about you're signing an individual to the team, then we'll probably be in a better place with Counter-Strike going forward, and we'll have less of these scenarios where people get benched and then they just sit there and they go, oh fuck, like I didn't expect this to happen. You know, people might actually be in a position where they understand like how that whole situation factors into their careers. People might be a little bit wiser before they're signing 3-year contracts, reading the fine print a little bit more, and not just reading the big dollar sign and going, oh yeah, this looks good, because there's a lot of different pitfalls and all that kind of nonsense, not nonsense, but stuff going on. And yeah, that's a tangent from VP, definitely. Sorry guys.
Look, I'm going to give you one example, right, why I agree with you. And just compare, like, you use the example of Simple, right? So let's use him and compare him to somebody like Edward. And let's say they have this, I mean, they shouldn't have the same salary, obviously, just because look at their buyouts, right? I doubt that Navi would ask the same amount for Edward as they would for Simple. Like, for Simple, it's probably like close to millions, while for Edward, it's probably going to be maybe in the hundreds of thousands, depending on the length of this contract. But still, it's going to be a very big difference in the buyout. And if the buyout is bigger, then the salary has to be bigger, because otherwise you don't really have a way to keep the players in, right? Hello?
Do we lose Banks? Is he
dead? I'm here. So I was typing to go and chat. He's actually giving us a good question, so I'm saving question time later, boys. We're on question duty.
I think we've flogged that dead horse of VP, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's just at this point it's just hard to say what's actually going wrong. But fundamentally, it has to be you have to look at the basics as well. Because I mean, I watched a couple of their games. Obviously, they don't play really like big games, so it's not even that interesting to watch them. But in ACS, that was actually interesting to watch, at least because they played pretty close. But
which is surprising,
their fundamentals are not great. Their fundamentals are just pretty shoddy, and that's what's going to hurt them against these lower tier teams as well, because they're just going to get like shit on for like individual plays, because their fundamentals aren't that strong. So that's something that they definitely have to work on, and you have to, I don't know, I don't want to put the blame on Cuban, because like I don't know you'd never know what's happening with coaches and how much input they have and shit like that. It's very hard to judge, but at the same time, you have to have somebody who just sits them down and has the power to say, okay, guys, like we have to look at this in a different way, and just like have something to hold over their heads and just fix the team somehow, because that's the person you look to outside of an in-game leader anyway.
It has to be like a mentality shift though, because I know that we say this kind of stuff all the time and the viewer probably thinks that we're just talking absolute bullshit. But the way that Counter-Strike is played now in the modern era compared to when it was when Bialy and Snacks were at the top of their game and at the top of Counter-Strike is so much different, and it hasn't been a very long time, right? You consider the progression, it hasn't been huge, but when you put all the factors like big salaries, tournaments all the time, things like the Intel Grand Slam, things like all the majors constantly propelling teams, and Astralis, of course, setting that bar super high, that really fast tracks Counter-Strike for everybody, because you can see a path of things that you need to do. It's not as simple of having 2 or 3 strategies on a map. It's about like having, you know, a strat book of different months of the year, or different, like you break the year down to 3 different parts of where you have all these strats. You can pull them out at any given time. People know all the necessary smokes. You can do all these different moves. You have a lot of different CT pop flashes, reactions, the theory's done. There's so much more to Counter-Strike than there ever has been before. And if your mentality is stubborn and you don't really want to approach it with the mindset that you need to adjust completely as a whole team, and you need to catch up with modern day CS or even push it further, then you're going to be stuck in this pitfall, right? And if another team has a style, like it used to be like fast style, you'd have a fast and a slow style, right? Like you'd probably have teams, and then you'd be pretty contrasting. Like Na'Vi, when we used to watch them in the early days, they were super slow, and maybe they'd play against a team who was super momentum based and fast, right? But now, like, just watch a lot of these top tier teams. They do everything. They play slow, they play fast, they play the mid rounds, you know, they fake. Everybody does it. All the good teams do everything now. And that's the problem, because if you can't get into that mindset, you're fucked. Simple as that.
Like everybody has those little moves. It's just obvious that everybody on the top tier does a lot more just pure theory of like, what are we going to do when this happens? What are we going to do when that happens? How do we react to this or that? And it's just, that's just the hard work that you have to put in these days. It's like a lot of the boring work, but that's something that you just have to do. And like, obviously, again, we can't know how much Virtus.pro are actually doing of this, how much they're not. But if their fundamentals aren't very strong, this also has to be like one of the reasons that they're just not putting in the right amount of work.
Oh, we will have to wait and see. Now the next one, boys, and this is what I'm interested in knowing your opinions for, is fnatic getting that last invite to Sydney. Now, I'm looking at the roster of teams that are already there, and okay, the ones that came through the qualifiers, it could be an interesting mix, but of all teams to invite, is it deserved for fnatic to get that invite for Sydney?
So there's lots of things to consider here. A lot of people in the community just look at this like it's a black and white scenario, but it isn't. There's obviously a grey area where you're pulling on in due to fan bases.
Exactly.
And unfortunately, that's just kind of the world we live in some regard, because you want to sell tickets, you want to please the fans, you want to pack out the arena. That's why, you know, when we do have the majors that come on in and there's so many different elements of qualification, and then you have the different teams coming into the tournament, then yeah, you're well in your rights to see that type of CS. This does happen on a lot of levels. There's so many tournaments that we could talk about. I think most of the high-level tournaments you see have invites, and that's for that purpose that I'm talking about, right? But if we go through these names, who, in your opinion, is missing? Na'Vi, ENCE, and obviously Astralis, right? Those are the 3 big names.
We know Astralis won't go anyway because
of
jet lag, travel,
and
they're not interested.
I'd say that Na'Vi are probably in a similar boat. They would have definitely been asked. And then ENCE, maybe ENCE, I guess not. I guess not, because if they've just asked fnatic now, then you would have definitely had ENCE before them, right, to invite to this one based off the major. So, yeah. And ENCE also have a quite a large fan base just based off the Easy for ENCE meme. So those 3 teams, and obviously I can't speak for anybody other than Astralis in like 100%, because we didn't we hear somewhere that they turned it down? Or maybe I heard that in the back and I wasn't meant to say anything about it. But either way, it doesn't really matter at this point. I would say similar things for Na'Vi and ENCE if I was going to hazard a bet, right? I was going to hedge on this one. Then you look at the other names. So you look at teams who have come through from qualifiers. Now, people will be like, well, why do we have Vici, MVP, and Boot? Well,
they were qualified yesterday, right?
And there's still 2 slots open for an Oceanic qualifier and an AEU/NZ national champion, which is something that ESL Australia runs. Yeah. Now, if you think about those things, and you want to sit there and you want to be really critical, and you say that those teams are shit or whatever, you have to think about what IEM Sydney is to the region. It's like, it's partially a regional event as well, right? Like obviously bringing the big names down is what packs out the arena, but it also is a good chance to showcase and help more localized teams have an opportunity to get better. Now, there's lots of qualifiers for Asian regions and Australia and stuff now, but for one slot, not for as many as this right here. MVP PK, obviously they just got rid of Solo and Glower out, but they have looked like they can upset
so
some
much
teams.
Better. Yeah.
Vici beating Tyloo, that's a crazy one, right? Obviously at the major, when we think about how both of those teams went, Vici showed a lot of growth. Tyloo looked like they're in the same position, if not maybe a little bit worse than the previous major. And then Boot, well, Boot for me, Southeast Asia unfortunately has their best players playing in China. So now that we've gone through like those names and we know what we're missing, Astralis and Na'Vi, then you look towards the North American ones. Well, Swole Patrol qualified fair and square. So I think they actually got replaced by United, right?
Well, they basically Swole Patrol qualified and then 3 players went over to United. Yeah. So it's like 2 days later or something like that. So
yeah,
like this, we actually got this confirmed like very, very recently, like something like earlier today, I think.
So out of all these teams, Swole Patrol, obviously now they're United. Now that one there, you could argue that so many things about that. But whatever that roster is, it qualified in some degree. And then now you have these last 3 ones. And the GG Bet Invitational winner, that has like Movie Star Riders and those kind of names in it. So not another top dog. But Fnatic being an invite, like who would, like community, this is not, obviously I'm not going to get an answer because I don't reach the fucking drivel in Twitch chat. But
that's
like,
my job.
Who would you have picked otherwise, right? Like, Valiant or Fury or, you know?
I think
Ends was the only one that was logical for me.
I think potentially Ends didn't even get asked in time, basically, like before their final, before their major appearance. I feel like the timing could also play a big part in this because a lot of the time the invites are actually announced like months after the teams actually know that they're going or confirm that they're going. So that's also another thing that you have to consider. It's possible that Fnatic just basically accepted the invite before the major, or like right before the major, which would have been like early February, and that's enough. That's enough. Like at that time, they were definitely one of the best teams to get an invite. Obviously, since then we know what's been happening, but at the point at which they actually got the invite, they very much deserved it. And like Chad said, there aren't that many other options. Basically, like Ents are probably like the only one that you could look to at this point.
North, Vitality, G2, but you'd put them on the same plane.
North, exactly. North would have North actually showed us nothing. Vitality have only like started showing something recently, as well. That's Vitality is also like a very recent development. So all of those teams are at worst, I mean, at best on par with Fnatic, if not like lower. So
I guess one thing that's positive with it, right, if we're looking at Fnatic and their kind of downhill turn, is that at least here, this is for them to show that, okay, we can still fight back from it. I'm most interested to see, like, okay, can they hang in against maybe some of the lesser teams, or are we really looking at dire times for Fnatic? When I saw the announcements there, I was like, really sucks that I didn't see Ents there. I thought that would be like a good event with no Astralis there and potential looking at who they might match up against. But as you guys just saying there,
super exciting, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping for, right? I want to get that again. I want to see that come into play because Blast left me fucking wanting more of that. But I think if we don't see, Prof just said it. You go, this is Fnatic's make or break tournament. See, Prof, you're still here in some way. You can be useful. It is possible, but yeah, if Fnatic don't do well here, right, this is like you need to make a change, sort some fucking shit out because it's just all going downhill.
I think what the cool thing becomes now is obviously because we won't have Ents in Sydney and we won't have Na'Vi and we won't have Astralis. It's not a cool thing for the event as a whole. It's more about the ecosystem. So you bring Starlighter next week into it. You obviously bring Sydney into it. And then we're going to start filtering. We're already like chugging along in the year, right? So at that point after Sydney, you're starting to set your sights on shit like, you're starting to look towards like DreamHacks, the Masters. You're starting to look towards things like ESO1 Cologne, and that's when hopefully all the big dogs rock up. So this is cool in a way. It's cool and it's not cool. Like it's good in a way because we don't get to see the best teams meet for some time, but we also get to see where certain teams are at. So Ents, obviously, we're going to get into the discussion more, but they obviously proved themselves definitely so in the best of ones in really good fashion over there in Sao Paulo. And like then you can think Liquid as well. Okay, well they didn't exceed expectations. They're kind of just simmering around where we expected, but there was a pretty lackluster final. Okay, where are Na'Vi after the major? Like, are they heartbroken? Are they still doing as good as what they were? Is this a chance for teams like, you know, FaZe to come in and swoop a title? Because you have to remember this plays into the Intel Grand Slam as well. And I know that seems like ridiculous considering FaZe's form, but this is something where it just takes a mental switch for some of these teams, right? And that's probably one of those interesting things to look forward to. So fnatic being invited, all in all, you can see why people are a bit like up in arms about the whole situation, but it might be a good thing for Swedish Counter-Strike if both NIP and fnatic go there and just shit the bed. You know, that might be a really good thing for Swedish CS.
But it'll turn up and we get one actual good team come out the back of it, right? Or one that we see more potential from.
I mean, that I don't know, man. Like, we've seen so many switches in the Swedish scene, and have any
I don't want to see
switches,
by the way, between
I'm
Nip
not
and
just
fnatic.
saying,
I just mean I want to see them
between
new young players come in. I want to see that. It's the only fucking hope they've got now.
Yeah, I mean, well, whatever. I feel like it's gonna take a long time and much more than just a few lineup changes for Swedish CS to get back on the top. I don't know. Maybe fnatic will actually surprise me, like next weekend or whatever, next week.
I know.
They actually get back on, because they are at StarSeries. So let's
yeah.
I mean, we'll talk about that later. But like, speaking about like what's their make or break, it's more a StarSeries where they will actually get to play a lot, because that's like best of threes across the board, and we'll see about that. But yeah, that's a discussion for, like, I don't know, further down the episode, because we have StarSeries.
Yeah, we got a lot, but when we do get to that IEM discussion, when we do the next show for that, whenever the dates work out for that one, I'm going to be very interested in when we look at Renegades, because that's going to be another interesting topic as well.
Top 6, right? With
they
the
could
teams
easily.
there.
That's what I
Holy
looked at.
shit!
I was like, so wait a second, you have a fucking pretty damn good major run now, right? Better than any Aussie team before. And now you're not going up against all the big boys. If you can do work here, then it proves that all that fucking boot camping and the hard work they've been putting in is legit.
If they can not go to the final, though, because I need to use them for the caches to beat Henry, so I kind of need them. I kind of need them to not make it to the grand final. I predict against them every time. I can do whatever the fuck I want. Fuck Renegades, all right? I don't want them to win anything. I need them to play with me in the caches.
So what you're saying is there's no other Australian players that you can go to other than the Renegades in order to beat Henry. Is that what you're trying to say?
Well, there probably are other players, but I just like playing with Azza and Justin, so I'm a little bit biased, right? Obviously, so
yeah.
Well, if they make it to the final, I'll work something out. I'm sure. Like, I'll get Greyhound on the phone.
Exactly. Just get Dick Stacy and
get Dick Stacy, get the memes.
And just like even if you're not gonna win, you're just still gonna have the memes to work with and everything. So.
Can you just bring Sterling back so I can see if he's as good as I?
He's from New Zealand. I can't use him.
Oh no!
What about Sniper or some?
Yeah. See,
like
I can go into
old
the old
school people like that.
I can work it out.
Yeah.
Can't be that hard to beat Henry. Come on, Chad.
I'm pretty sure. Like whatever. Like what were the 1.6 names?
Like Gaza and
Gaza. That's the guy I was thinking about. Yeah. So just like get those guys, and I'm pretty sure you'd still beat Henry.
I don't know. He's got some things up his sleeve this time around.
Well, yeah, he has like a lot of pros in that team. I guess that's
corruption at its finest.
Well, I mean,
he's
you basically put together like your old team. How is this?
The first time it was so good. The first time, because it was everybody that I'd played with. It was only like maybe 6 months before, like 6 or 7 months before, it was the same team pretty much. Yeah. So I was calling like the old strats we used to run on Cache. Like I was just calling the same shit we used to do. So no wonder he got fucked. But the second time round, people think that the way that ended, that because it went to overtime, we did one round and then it was Top Gun and Havoc to win like a 2v4 or some shit. People genuinely thought that was scripted. And I swear to God, that was not scripted. Like I don't want to swear on my mother's life, but this is how strongly I'm telling you that this was not a scripted thing. Like it genuinely just worked out, that nonsense, right? It was wild. A bit disappointed that I didn't get Mark Hunt to throw Carmack in the bed of cream pies, but and I'm the one who got fucked up for the whole thing. But yeah, at least we won.
That's the important part. At least
we can get another.
At least we got the Henry moment as well.
We've had some good moments with that shit.
Yeah.
So, next up on the agenda, lads, and Striker, you can take the stage for this one. It is a big rip for Prof because the masterbettor comes in.
Are we not going to talk about Vice?
Oh, do you want? I didn't have that even on the list because
that's like the biggest news that we got.
You like this news?
I don't like it. I'm just saying it's big.
Tell it to me.
Yeah, Striker, you can explain this one because I was just going to go straight over it.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of on par with what we've been seeing from Cloud9 for like months or even years. If you consider like how they got in Stewie, at which point they got Stewie, which at the time was a really controversial move. When they got Automatic, a lot of people were also not convinced. So for them to get like another, like one of these, well, I don't want to say youngsters because he's not that young anymore. He's been around for quite a while, Vice. So it's not, he's not much of a newcomer to the scene, but still, like when you see Cloud9 do this move, it's not even surprising anymore. The problem is I just don't see what their plan is with this. I mean, obviously they didn't get their priority, and that's something that we talked about last time or like 2 episodes ago when Sunny was rumored to join Cloud9, and I'm sure they had other options as well before Vice, because I feel like that must have been like a further down the line kind of option. But yeah,
for Sunny's career, that's good that didn't happen though. Like, to be completely honest, for Sunny, that's really good.
Don't go to North America and die, basically.
I agree with that. It's just there. The thing is, at this point, Cloud9 are probably having trouble like getting any like semi-good European players to go over, just because of the I don't know, the being homesick and everything like that. That we've seen a lot of European players just kind of go through and go back to Europe after a couple of months. Just, I don't know, look at Simple when he was with Liquid, and now Kiyoshima is apparently going through something similar. We still don't know what's going to happen with that, by the way. It could be another change coming in, and that would make this one actually kind of more understandable, just because if they have having trouble getting one player, like one good player from Europe, they're definitely not getting two. Like that's not happening. So for them to kind of grab into the lower tier of North America, it makes sense, just because they probably don't have that many good options anyway. So it's like, I don't like this, just because I don't see this improving Cloud9 in any way. But I kind of understand that they didn't have much other options.
But this isn't this to me, like, okay, so when we started talking about Cloud9 at the start of the year, pre-major, before we had the E-League event, all that stuff go down, I said that I thought that this team was a dumpster fire, right? Because in my heart of hearts, I thought eventually Flusher, Keo, and Golden were all going to want to go back to Europe, right? You're not going to want to stay in America for a very long period of time. That's just the way it is. These kids, like, they're still quite young. Keo is the perfect example. His girlfriend lives in the UK. He's lived with her for some years. So this isn't a thing that he's probably gone into. This was a chance for him to I guess, the rebirth of Keo's career, right? And I think that he's done a fantastic job at showing he's a solid player, and he could be picked up in a French lineup. He could play in an international team, but in Europe, not in North America, right? So for this to go down in that way and then bring in Vice, this is, for me, isn't a conversation about Vice. It's a conversation about the steps forward for this team. If you're Automatic and Rush, you need Keo to stay to keep your major spot. We've already debunked the fact that Golden doesn't get it. We went hard on that as soon as that came out as news, and we've come to the bottom of that. So Golden doesn't get the major spot, and Keo, he's in the UK right now. I'm pretty sure I saw a video on Instagram or Twitter just like yesterday or some shit with him and his girlfriend on a treadmill in the UK, I'm pretty sure. So like, not on the same treadmill, and treadmills next to each other. But the point here is he's not even in the US right now. So how are they practicing? And if they are, they're practicing with high ping, which is whatever it is. And if I was players like Automatic and Rush, Automatic already got really disgruntled last time he felt that he had to rebuild. Don't remember that? He was like, oh, I'm just going to play fucking Fortnite or some shit, because Fortnite at that time got announced as like $100 million or whatever the fuck it was. So he's been disgruntled in the past before. And if I'm Golden and I'm looking at all these different bits and pieces going on in Europe right now, well, FaZe need a fucking in-game leader. Swedish Counter-Strike's about to fucking implode. I'm not staying with this team. I want to get back to... He must still be in Sweden because of these health issues, right? So all these things factor into this Cloud9 team probably not going to happen at all, even though they brought Vice in. I still don't understand that. I think that what they should have done is try and buy players from other teams and use the brand power of Cloud9 to pick up the other good names. So keep Automatic and keep Rush, 100%. They're your mantelpieces. I think Automatic is a fantastic player. But then they should have fucking Envious beat them to the punch. That Som kid, I don't know about his attitude, right? That's not something that I fucking delve into. I don't watch the streams. I don't fucking geek out watching their FPL, Rankers, whatever the fuck that is. I don't read the Reddit, the drama, and the Twitter drama. I just watch them play CS. And when I watch him play CS, He seems like he knows what he's doing. You bring this kid in. Okay, that's another bit of young blood in the team. I think Wardell as an AWPer. Or if you couldn't get Wardell because he's tied to Ghost too closely, then you get Nifty. Like, I think Nifty still has potential to be a good AWP player, right? But now Nifty's tied to Envious, so then he's not going to want to leave that brand either. So if you could have gotten either of those two AWP players, now you've got like a good 4. I know that Automatic is doing a good job on the AWP, but Automatic as a player is like a carbon copy in my mind. Yeah, he should be like a free player to roam around to do whatever he wants, pick up the AWP when he feels it, because he's like an instinctual player in my mind. So like, let's say that you got Som in, there's your 3. Let's say you got Wardell, like this is the dream that I'm looking at right now. And then fuck, I think that Envious again made a pretty good pickup with Android. Android getting dropped from Complexity was like a question mark to me in the first place. I was like, really? Like he's one of your better fragging pieces and you just replaced him? It's like, that was confusing to me as well. So I think there's a lot of good pieces of the puzzle there in North America, and you shouldn't be looking abroad if you're Cloud9. Understand that your major is gone. Understand that
give up on it.
And that's shit. Like, that sucks. But you have the biggest fan base in North America, right? They're still going to love you regardless. You have 2 really iconic players who have won a major in your team. Build and be good, because right now we've got Liquid. Right now we've got NRG. They're both looking pretty solid. Cloud9 can be the 3rd. North Americans can start looking as the most deadly it's ever looked in the history of Counter-Strike. I think Ghost as a team, obviously they have Wardell, and I want to take Wardell, but I think them as a team looking pretty nice. Their biggest issue is Steel. Unfortunately, he's still banned and he can't play at the majors. That sucks, but you know, there's definitely pieces of the puzzle here that could come together, and you could have a 3rd good North American team.
And this is the thing, right? When you're looking at what Cloud9 have here, you've already given up the major spot. You know you're fucked there. So why not rebuild something that's very successful or could be successful, or put some investment in that side of things? I think the main thing with the whole Envy now is like, look at when Envy first launched. That lineup was pretty damn bad. Then they started to do a little bit better. But this change, this Envy actually looks fucking scary in comparison to what a Cloud9 has to offer right now. And they should just be sat there going, all right, let's just wait for whoever else we've got left for this shit to run out and spend our money wisely rather than doing dumb shit. Because that's all it's been for the last, what, few months?
It's
been going on for a year, man.
Yeah, you get why they were trying to plug the holes with the Europeans, because they were still like a contender, right? They were still like a scary prospect. But as soon as this fucking boat has just been blown open by a nuke, they're fucked, right? Like at that point, it's all over. So I think that somebody needs to take the reins, and that's probably going to have to be Rambo, right? He's taken over the coaching role, but he's going to need to get the go-ahead, and I don't know if this is going to happen. I have a feeling that like I said, if Swedish Counter-Strike keeps going in the way it's going, Golden has to be like the best in-game leader they can look towards, right? Like he has a really good opportunity to go back there. FaZe is in a bit of a struggle street right now. We don't know what's going to happen with them after Shanghai. They might look to change a player.
I don't see FaZe like having respect for Golden though.
That's unfortunate. Like we said the same thing when he joined fnatic in the first place, though, and they won IEM Katowice last year with him, right? And people might say, yeah, well, it was Flusher winning those amazing clutches. It definitely was, but when I saw Golden come into the team originally, what he brought was a bit more structure and a bit more strategy back to Swedish Counter-Strike, which wasn't missing from NIP, but was missing from fnatic, because fnatic just went super brawly. So he impressed me in that regard, and he was a pretty decent fragger. Like it didn't feel like a liability. He didn't feel like somebody that was anchoring. So it's a lot of moves that have to happen, but I think that the writing's on the wall for Cloud9, and maybe they just don't want to read it.
Yeah. I mean, they're too deep into this European shit that it's kind of hard to get out of it. Like, it's not going to happen that they're just going to remove, unless Kyo's already out. Like, it's not going to happen that they'll just remove Golden unless he also, like you say, gets an offer from somewhere in Europe, either Sweden or FaZe or whatever else. They're not just going to make these moves on their own. They're not just going to say, okay, Kyo, Golden, get out. Let's get a North American lineup again. Like, that's going to be a gradual process. And I mean, the issue is this has been going on for a year, like I said before. Like, this could go on for another 6 months before Golden leaves or whatever. Before Kyo actually is confirmed gone, like another couple of months. And you're looking at like another half a year of Cloud9 being like in limbo, basically doing nothing and just like going through constant lineup changes. So this is it's a very hard circle to get out of.
Well, we'll have to wait and see what they actually can do in trying to get out of it, because it's just a waiting game for now, right? We've kind of covered on multiple times at different points talking about what Cloud9 can offer. But now we get to get onto the fun point, right? We're done with news. You don't want to cover anything else, right? Because we can cover the Hellraisers thing when we look at Star Ladder overall and how that worked out for him.
Sure.
So we're going to go on to the masterbettor, where it is just a rip for Prof, because Striker, how well did it go for you?
Look, I've been losing too, to be fair. Like, I have not been doing that much better, like results-wise. Fortunately, I've actually been betting a little bit less. And to be like, okay, like this is the sort of things that happens in betting, which is that my slip last time hinged on Ents and Liquid, because I had Liquid beating Ents. And obviously we know what happened there. Ents and Liquid tied. And obviously Liquid still basically won that match because they went to the final because of the round difference. So that's what fucked my slip last time. I think Prof lost like two of his 4 matches or something like that. I think he fucked up on both counts, I think. I don't remember exactly. But yeah, this is how it's been going. I won the first slip since that I've been losing. Prof has just been losing from the first one up until now, like 3-4 in a row. And dude, it's not getting any better, because this week we had very, very hard matches, like a very hard choice of matches to bet on, because it's all online CS, these StarSeries matches, even though they've been announced, like, well, they were announced something like earlier today, like a couple of hours ago. So those matches haven't been added yet, so we had to go really, really deep into some like
dodgy games again.
pretty dodgy European shit. Like, I feel like I put together like a fairly reasonable slip, but it's still like tier 3 CS, and it's still like super random. So it's just hard to say. And I don't even know what Prof did.
Do we have his slip, Lucas?
I'm sure.
Oh,
I'm
yes,
sure we do.
Awesome. Okay,
let's look at this, because
let's start with Striker's slip to start off with, then, because we can talk through that, and then we can just humiliate Prof further.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, my slip, like I said, it's basically like a United Masters League. Then there's like,
oh, why
MDL.
are you betting on that shit league? You literally must be losing your fucking mind.
There's 2 matches of ESC of MDL. Of European MDL. I'm not touching NA MDL. Fuck that. I'm not touching. I'm not touching like advanced or anything like that. That's like 100% random as hell. So
I'm just
like,
saying,
I have
right?
Look,
UM League is the biggest shit show.
I know.
And if any of them teams get any money from it, I will fucking eat my hat.
Look, my slip, like, I don't know, like 5-6 episodes or something ago, when we also didn't have any other choice, I had to go into UML, and I fucked up the slip on that as well. So it's like, well, whatever. And didn't really have
Good luck,
much of a choice.
have fun.
Because it's like MDL Australia, MDL NA, Pro League Season 9, SEA closed qualifier, and China closed qualifier, Spanish CS, Australia and New Zealand Championship Season 8, whatever. Like,
That's a big one.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. Like that, but that's the kind of CS that I'm betting on. Oh fuck! Of course, I swear to God, I'm just checking the website now. They just added the matches for StarSeries. 6 matches in StarSeries are fuck.
Now you're ripped.
Yeah, now we're fucked, because we literally, it must have been added like whatever in the past hour, because I did it right before the show started. So yeah, so we missed out on that just barely. But yeah, whatever. Just gonna get into my slip. Sprout to beat Movistar Riders. That's UML, I'm pretty sure. No, it's not. It's MDL, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, it's MDL. Sprout to beat Movistar. They had pretty high odds. Movistar haven't been doing very well against like this level of teams in Europe, and Sprout have actually been looking like pretty good at this level, like at that tier 2 to 3 level in those tournaments. They've actually had pretty solid results, so I just went for Sprout. Valiants to beat the Uruguay, whatever. Uruguay basically are a team that's not even working properly after like they lost a couple of players. That's also pretty obvious. Wendigo to beat Sprout, I feel like that could be one that could fuck me, just based on, I don't know, depending on what's happening with Wendigo. But obviously, like, Wendigo are riding a high. They've actually been doing pretty well, although they lost to Movistar like recently. I think it was like one of the Pinnacle Cups or something like that. I don't remember exactly. And closed out with Greyhound versus Chiefs. That's MDL Australia, I feel like. Yeah, MDL Australia. I even went into like the matchups in this and just checked if like Greyhound haven't been like religiously losing to Chiefs only or something like that. That hasn't been happening. They lost like out of the last 8 matches that they played against each other. Yeah. So that was my thinking there.
You may have been duped there though a little bit because Chiefs recently changed roster, right? So when they played at fucking WSG, that's when they had Infrequent and
I know that.
Moe. Yeah, so they brought in Zuzi and Ofnu, right?
Yeah.
Which I'm really surprised Zuzi and Ofnu like want to play in that team because it means that they can't play at majors, or minors. That's an interesting one by them. But yeah, so you don't think that makes a difference?
I mean, of course it does make some sort of a difference. It's a different team, but still, they're a pretty new team, and Greyhound have been one that have been pretty much at the top of Australia for a while. So I don't see that much of a risk in that one. I mean, it's still online CS. It's like MDL. Like I said, it's an MDL Australia. I could very well lose it on that one, but it's like I said, not really too many better choices, and these four were like the least risky that I could find, basically.
See what doldrums fucking old boy Prof went into.
I love how his little card is poking out.
I'm sure he went into MDL Australia. Yeah, he actually went for the same thing. I was sure he was going to do that, and he actually has 3 of the 4 that I have as well. He literally went into the same thing, so we actually are in agreement. I don't know how much did he bet though.
You can't see my hand. No, that was a rip.
Oh, he bet $50. So we actually, even though I have like an extra batch that could fuck me, we're gonna get the same amount if we both win.
Ooh.
Yeah. Yeah. Nothing to add there. He basically
this isn't that spicy at all.
Thinking to me clearly, because like there were like all the other matches that are available were worse than this. So you can imagine how that looks. This is gonna be another rough week for both of us. I feel like.
How many, are we just doing it until you run out of money, or is there a certain
I think it's now the first
until
to lose.
One of us runs out of money.
Okay. Prof said I had fours to beat Movistar, but the odds went down.
Prof is gonna be at half when he loses the slip, right? I'm saying when because he's gonna lose the slip because I am.
Let's put a cap on it because we did it last time at the end of the major, right?
Yeah,
so,
we have to figure out when do we end this.
What do we got? No, let's do it after Miami.
How many weeks is that?
It's 18 days until Miami. So when Miami ends, Pro League will be going. Yeah, so that's pretty good. You guys should still have left for them.
I think we ended the first one on the 8th episode, so like having another 8 episodes or something like with this, that makes sense.
We're truly going to find out about that Cloud9 roster come Miami as well, right? Because they're signed up with Kia, Rush, Automatic, Vice, and Golden now. So we'll actually get to see what's happening.
That's true.
And it's going to happen before there or not. And I don't think that Blast is the type of organization that would care if Cloud9, if Kia and Golden went and they brought in 2 new guys. I don't think that Blast would care. It's not the type of thing which they're too worried about. So that'll be interesting. We should find out.
Like they did have that rule that denied Refresh from playing with them in Copenhagen or something from Cloud9, but that was because like Golden actually played like the first match or something, so it was just going to be confusing or something like that. So they have some sort of like roster rules, but it probably doesn't apply to like weeks before the event actually starts. But I agree with you there. I feel like if Cloud9 actually decide to make a change, it's not going to be a problem with Blast.
Well, we'll see how you guys do next week. Prof will be here to defend himself then. I love that Lucas gave us a little part of his face on there.
Ourselves together because we literally have the same picks. So
yes, but Striker, I prefer you, Prof. He can get fucked with his flute comments, and no, we're just gonna keep bullying Prof at this point. Let's go over to the Blast Pro Series and kind of what we thought of it. Obviously, Chad, you were there. Prof was there doing the work, but now he's not here because his flight didn't work out. That's why he's not on the show. So Striker, me, and Chad will break it all down. And I've said winners, losers, and flukes. We'll come on to the flukes bit at the end because Prof was clearly wrong. But
can we start with the winners?
We thought about it. Yeah. So I was going to. That's what I was thinking. Let's start with. For me. Okay, Astralis, yes, you did what you did as per usual.
Sorry, Banks. I thought you were talking about the draft where
okay. I was going to come on to the fantasy at the end if you want, but I'll start now, Chad, so you can have your moment.
Let's do it first.
Lucas, let's do the fantasy. Chad wants his moment so he can sit there and go, I am the god. I'm so correct. And finally, an Australian won something again in Counter-Strike.
Look, I wasn't good at playing, but I'm good at picking. So, look, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, as you can see here, I came first. And that's all you need to know. So basically, this
Hey,
is
fuck
pure
you, I came
random.
second. That's important.
It's pure random luck on the players you pick and hoping they perform. But I got lucky. I had obviously Device, Twists, and I had Elige as well. And Elige had some absolutely beastly performances. Device got the MVP, and it's kind of just luck of the draw. But it was a good bit of fun, right? Because after every round was finishing, I was checking to like see how I was doing. It's like, you know, it gives you that other little, I guess, thing to be interested about. And I think that. I kind of sucked at the rolls. I might have to look at that when we do it for Shanghai.
I did well on the bonus points for the rolls.
How many bonus
I did
points do you
good
have?
there.
Because I have 52 bonus points.
I got 92.
Oh, that's not that bad, I guess.
Yeah,
Appreciate
but
it.
like there were certain rounds where like Twist didn't start too fantastically. He kind of warmed into the tournament. How the fuck did Prof get minus 73 points?
I don't
overall?
understand how you get that bad.
We know that Cold Zero fucked it.
What did he have?
He ended on minus 73.
Oh, there we go. He had Cold Zero, Glaive. Glaive also had a bad tournament. Let's.
Well, he looked good on the second day.
Well, he was okay overall, but he didn't have like a great tournament as he usually does. Basically, like.
Can I just say, you know, my fur pick, which was completely like not meant to happen.
The accident pick, yeah.
The accident pick actually didn't end up being the fucking crippling factor for me. That's what I'm most impressed by. Even if MIBIR did
Phelps,
bad,
right?
So I'm sat there going, I'm watching it, I'm thinking, great, MIBIR getting fucked. This is gonna really tank me. But overall, I still managed to survive. So I'm fucking taking that.
You finished pretty well.
Yeah.
I mean, basically, Prof lost most of it, like 240 points on Cold Zero and Taco. I think he had Guardian, who also lost some points, and Sergey and Glaive just didn't make up for that difference, basically.
I just wanted to gloat a bit, but just so the viewers know, we will be doing it for Shanghai as well.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll bring some more people in, because I believe that there should be more
we can
teams
have like
available.
16 people or something.
Yeah,
like that.
so we'll try and bring some more people in when we do it next time. We might just do like a special where we just do the draft, but it's not available just yet. Obviously, the opening matchups just got announced. So I would assume, I'm talking out of my arse here, don't take anything I say ever as a fact. I think probably Wednesday.
No, it is Wednesday. Yeah, Wednesday is
Yeah.
confirmed that Shanghai will start, and
so we can do it sometime around then. So
I definitely want to do that again. I really fucking enjoyed this. There was nothing on the line other than pride.
Yeah, it was fun.
But it was good fun just watching it the whole way through.
And we don't actually have to talk
like
about Astralis.
Yes.
Huh?
I said we don't actually have to talk about Astralis because
I mean, is there even anything to say out of it?
Exactly. It's like that is a dead horse at this point as much as Virtus.pro are, but in the opposite
the only
reason.
thing that I'm gonna say is that their Dust 2 is actually, I mean, they are actually a team that I thought would be able to figure out how to play Dust 2 like on a consistent level. Because they basically already have. Like I'm sure they lost like 16-1 to North at Stockholm and whatever. They had like a couple of pretty bad losses on it. But overall, they've actually been looking like very consistent on the map, and I thought that wasn't possible. For however good you are, I feel like you can't be consistent on Dust 2 just because of how easy it is to break apart the CTs and how easy it is to take advantage of it. So it's just like on CT side, you just have to keep taking risks all the time. Basically, there's no default way of playing that will just like grant you rounds, basically. So that's just one of my takeaways, because they actually did play very close in all four of their wins, all four of the Dust 2 maps that they played in the round robin, and then they lost to Liquid the second time around when they rematched them. So that's just one takeaway.
Yeah, I think that obviously the loss there speaks for itself, and in that opening game, we probably would have assumed, well, I think Liquid said it themselves as well, that they felt like they should have won that game. What were they, 6-0 up or something, right? So they're off to a pretty good start, and then I was talking to the manager at breakfast one day, I was like, yeah, they just said that they started to doubt themselves, you know, they started to change their play style, thinking Astralis would cotton on. That didn't happen, and then when they got the victory around the second time, I guess that reassures themselves in that opening matchup. But when you think about the teams that they played on Dust 2, they're pretty good Dust 2 teams in a way, right? So obviously not NIP in the same regard, but I think that you look at FaZe, you would consider them to be a good Dust 2 team across the board just because of the players they have in that roster and the fact that you can have a lot more open duels in that way. The one that surprised me was the Ents one, because it felt like they had closed the door on Ents very early. It was that 2v4 situation, I think it was, on the A-bomb site with Device and Dupree, and then they ran away with like a streak of 5 rounds to close out the half, and I was like, oh, this is over, this is done. They won pistol. I was like, oh, this would be just a quick one. But then after Sergey had that Deagle round, I don't know if he was the one that got run boosted out. I didn't actually get to see it from his perspective, but they came out cat with numbers. Like, it's not like it was just a standard anti-eco, right? Play ramp, play the long range duelist, and Sergey just comes out and just fucking bangs off 4 cunts heads with that Deagle. And I was like, well, okay, cool. And from that point, like, the tide really turned. And once again, Ents were able to be like resilient, but like I think that probably, because like we don't have that much to say about Astralis, that probably takes me to answers the next point. I know you wanted to say leave the flukes to the last bit, Banks, but everybody who watched the show last time round or after the major or whatever, and Prof and I were on the same page with the way that we kind of approached our thoughts on Ents, and that's because in the fashion that Ents were competitive in the playoffs and made it to the final to play Astralis, it was on the back of their worst rated player having the best series, the best phase of the tournament of his life, right? And the reason that we thought it was a fluke in saying that was because in that fashion we didn't expect it to happen again. Well, it didn't happen in that fashion again with them performing to like a very high standard, right? It was much more of the stars that we were expecting towards the top of the charts. And if look, we talk about the Blast format, I'm sure, towards the end of this once we've wrapped everything up. But that game with Liquid, that was super exciting. Like, I know people were like, oh, I wish I got to see the end. But regardless, it worked out perfectly because it was the last game of the round. And whoever won that match was going through. They'd all played all their other games, and you can argue about, oh, yeah, maps, this, that, and the other. But this format, the Blast Pro Series as a whole, it is a different tournament, and you just have to come to fucking terms with that because that's the way it is. They run a 2-day tournament. That's their thing, right? I know that people get upset about it and like, oh, this, that, and the other, but that's fine. You can get upset about that. But then you have Starletter next week that's doing Swiss best of threes the whole way through. You're going to see more than enough Ents in Counter-Strike. You're going to see it there. You're going to get to an ESL event where they run their best of threes and that kind of shit. You're going to see these tournaments happen. The Blast one, that game was still super fucking exciting, and we still got some really good games of CS. So I don't know why people feel the need to complain because it's not the same as everything else. That's the last thing we need is every tournament being the same.
That's what I was going to come to, Chad, was that the whole point with Blast, right, is that it is different. It's not meant to be like other fucking tournaments. So if people are going to complain about it, yes, of course we want to watch amazing Counter-Strike, but the game was fucking exciting and it delivered in the manner, like you said, in terms of who's going to be making it further across. But what I love about it is that it just leaves us now waiting to see when they next face each other, waiting to see when we get them maybe in a best of 3 against each other, right? And then we get to see the real test of both teams in that format. I think it's just almost like a nice little storyline setup for kind of the next couple of tournaments, right? And that's how I've seen it rather than more the negative. The people that were complaining about it is like, you knew what you were in for when you watch Blast. Blast is its own beast when it comes to doing an event, and this is what you get. Sometimes this is how it will work out.
I think I mean, to defend that point though from the people that complain, because I was actually one of them, and my problem with it was that we saw, like Chad said, we saw them play everybody else before that, right? And they both basically lost very closely to Astralis and had no problems beating everybody else. And then it came down to them going up against each other, and we didn't get that result. Like we didn't figure out who was better in that. Like for that to end in round difference, in Liquid basically beating FaZe, NiP, and MIBR in bigger, like with bigger numbers, which was already like single digits for Ents. Yeah, that's the bullshit part of it, because just like we didn't get what we really wanted, like to see who was better outside, like between Ents and Liquid, and who would get that final spot. Because like the way that it ended, obviously Liquid just got a freebie.
Yeah, but okay, so on your point there, right, and you know me, I'm always saying I want to see the best Counter-Strike, I want to see the best teams go head-to-head, I want to see how these matches go down. I just personally, I only take Blast with a pinch of salt. Like, I don't really take it as a massively serious tournament. I watch it, I enjoy it for the different format, the little kind of fucking standoff bit at the end's a bit of fun, right? You get to say, oh yeah, that team's better aim-wise on a crazy map. But like, for me, it doesn't hold enough weight for me to be like, yeah, that was unfair. We should have seen it go down a different way. Like, it happened, it's part of the format, and I kind of expected it.
I'm just talking about the moment itself. It's just like the feeling that I got when it was 15-15 and when I knew what that meant. Yeah. It's just that was the bullshit part for me. Not even that they didn't get to play that final, like, you know, looking back at the tournament or anything like that. It's just like in that moment, like when I saw that Liquid actually brought it back, especially in the way that it did. It was like 2v4 or something like that they did a retake on A.
Yeah, it was Chewy with the flank, right? Yeah,
it was really sick, like a really sick turnaround for that overtime, well, for the tie. So like that was super anticlimactic for me. So even for like Blast and them like prioritizing the show, basically, it was a bad thing.
Well, so like that's the thing, though, right? It is a spectacle, and that's kind of where
it's not. It's not a normal tournament, right? I don't look at this as like an IEM or a fucking.
Look, I understand it all. I understand the rationale behind it. It's just I felt like shit when that happened.
No, I get it, right? Because I had the same feeling that, like, fuck, I want to see where this goes from here. So I fully on that point, and like, fuck me, I don't have to defend this format or anything about Blast. They don't hire me, don't use me. That's not something I need to sit there and go, oh yes, I like this format. I even said in my preview video that I put out on my YouTube that, like, I literally don't hold much stock in many of the matches that happen until really the grand final. Like, I just kind of take it as this is a good event for viewers, this is a good event for the fans who are actually in the venue, and that's about it. When I attended the first one in Copenhagen, I remember it being just an amazing spectacle, but when I'm looking at the actual matchups, I don't have as much interest in them. Now, that last one, yes, we were all very much like, oh shit, this is going down. Like, where does it go from here? But for me, I'm just, I don't care enough about the whole Blast Pro Series tournaments and what they offer in the overall grand schemes of the CS format and all the tournaments that go on for me to be like, yeah, this isn't proper.
It for me is like a very good like measuring stick of form, right? Because it is on LAN, it's under a very intense environment. It's a big stage match, regardless of if your match is being featured on the main screen or not. And there is a lot of pressure because it's a best of one. So those games are a lot more intense for a best of one than what they would normally go through. So I put stock in the matches because it is interesting from a storyline or head-to-head perspective, right? Like, for example, where are FaZe in it, and I was going to say SK, MIBR at, you know, like, oh, is this Drake and Change and NIP going to change anything with them? Are they going to look any better? You know, is Astralis still the top dog? Was it a fluke for ENCE? Can they come in and perform here? Liquid, we know they were the challenger. What do they have in store? Because all those narratives and storylines exist within all of these teams. It's not like, I understand like when we have Starlighter next week, for example, the level of competition might be higher because of the unknown factor, and there's a lot more underdog teams who could really take the fight and surprise everybody and that kind of stuff. But the thing is, it is what it is. But I want to say this. I want to say that ENCE have definitely impressed me. They impressed me before, don't get me wrong. Yeah. They've impressed me now to the point where they did it in the fashion with all their stars clicking. Sergey was the highest rated player for that team. And you have to say now that they're legit because they did it on a bunch of different maps at this tournament. Yep. Sure, they didn't get a chance to go through and play Astralis again. We don't know how that would have gone down. But they pushed the team who everybody considers number 2 in the world to the brink, and it was a draw. You're going to get closer than that. So the way that they performed, especially under that big stage environment, I was there in that arena, right? And this is another thing. I made a tweet about this as well. There are certain situations, like I said, even if your game is not on the main stage, there's cheering going on, and you wouldn't be able to hear much that's happening. So if you just stay focused and poised, and that proves a lot about the caliber of the players in the server. So ENCE definitely impressed.
And the thing is with ENCE, right, is when I come to look at this event and what they managed to do, one of my biggest kind of thoughts going into it was, you know, all like the rumors around, is a player going to change or stuff like that? Does this ruin that kind of camaraderie that we saw between the ENCE players, right? Because that's one thing I've always seen from the events I've been at while ENCE are there, is they are together. They have a good like friendship style kind of working relationship, and how they approach the game, how they deal with things afterwards. And I was like, okay, with these Sunny rumors, is there one player who just thinks, oh fuck, okay, this could be like the end for me? Do they drop off, or does something different happen? But they stood strong through all of it, and they've just kept it going. So like you were saying, Chad, this to me, it just makes it even more legit. And Prof wasn't a fluke.
They're probably scared though. They're probably like those players in the team who consider themselves on the chopping block are probably motivated like the Zipnik situation, right? Because knowing Sunny's looming there at any point in time, and now especially that he didn't get signed with Cloud9, I don't know how much it's going to cost to buy him out of that Mouse Sports contract. Actually having Sunny there on the sideline is good for ENCE because it means that nobody can slack off, which is a fantastic factor when you think about it, right? So
it's the motivation.
It worked in that regard. But I talked about this on the desk, and I actually read into a Reddit thread about it, and people said, oh, I mentioned it, but someone said, oh, I couldn't find anything posted about it, so there's no truth behind it. But Blast actually told us that we could talk about it on the broadcast. So it was the World Championship thing that we were talking about. So it's like a season now. There's meant to be 7 tournaments over the year for Blast, and you get points per tournament. So 10 points for a win, 8 for second, 6 for third, 4 for fourth, 2 for fifth, and 0 for sixth. And then at the end, there's a global final. Now, I'm not going to go into any more detail than that because I haven't been given the okay to go into any more detail than that. But the global final at the end of the year will have 4 teams. So they're calling it the grand final, the global final, something along those lines. So at the end of it, there'll be 8 blast tournaments. It must be 8, I think. Yeah, so 8 blast tournaments by the end of the year. So in terms of other bits of it, there's stuff that I know, but I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say, and I don't want to, I don't want to upset the apple cart. But they told us we could say that stuff on the broadcast. So kind of, if you look at it now with that in play, and still you still can't compare it to like a longer form event with best of threes the whole way through, right? We just can't from like a purist perspective. But now you can kind of see what their overall goal is to like kind of have a circuit going through, and then the best teams at the end will play. And a lot of people go, oh, there's lots of invites, this, that, and the other. There's so many tournaments with qualifiers, guys. I get it, but look at what Blast are trying to do. They're trying to pack out arenas, right? They're not going to pack out a fucking arena with Swole Patrol and fucking Valiants, It's not that I think Valiants are a bad team, it's just they don't have a huge fan base. You have to just consider these things. There's plenty of other tournaments, there's plenty of other opportunities for these teams to be involved, and I know that you guys might sit there and think it's unfair, but you just have to get the fuck over it, unfortunately, because this is the way it is, and this is business at the end of the day. So these
it's a good business model as well.
Yeah,
fuck, look at them arenas, man, every single time.
I have a lot of fun in there. So those things with the Blast format going forward is something that you guys will be hopefully hearing more of soon. But I guess this kind of takes us to the losers, and I really want to know how far MIBR and FaZe can fall before something drastic happens. With
MIBR, right? And I was agreeing with you, Chad, and then I saw this and I was like, what the fuck? Like, I was like, okay, MIBR, give them some time after the major. Give them a little bit more of like working on it. This is a chance for them to do well. I expect them to do a lot better here. And now we're at this point where you go, you lost 0-5. But what the fuck actually went wrong? Like, okay, Cole's performance, it can't just come down to him. It was like one player, right? But I mean, there is a lot missing from that team right now. And
they're all missing from that team.
Yeah,
they're all missing.
And the whole thing is like, oh, we've got the Brazilian Brotherhood back together. That should be able to kind of give us back what we had before, bring back that motivation. Something is clearly not clicking.
I think it's their priorities. I think that there's maybe too much focus on other things outside of the game from these guys, because what they've done is they've built a fantastic thing in Brazil, right? They've built. Look, you think about MIBR of old, that kind of paved the way for the MIBR now. Obviously, Kaboom, you've got Luminosity, you've got SK, you've got what they're known as now. But that was something that Fallen has been a huge integral part of doing, right? And I forgot how old Fallen was. And this, I don't mean this in a mean way, but Fallen's like 27, right? So he's actually towards the upper end of the age brackets right now. And if none of their players, you think about this team, we were talking about Fallen being like one of the best orbs in the world, Fur being one of the most disruptive, like aggressive players, like getting information, all that kind of stuff. Then you've got Cold Zero, just that absolute anchor of the team, winning clutches, being amazing across the board, just fucking wrecking everybody. If not a single one of those components in the team is firing, they're completely fucked, because Counter-Strike has changed. Like, they were the team that really ushered in theory side of Counter-Strike. That was the big thing I spoke about with them when they had their dynasty, was that they really focused on theory, and you could see it in the game because they reacted well off each other in mid-rounds. But now Counter-Strike has changed again. It's not just about the mid-rounds, it's a lot more. We spoke about this at the start, so go back and listen to the fucking start of the podcast if you want to hear me say the same shit. But the point is, like, now it's just maybe their focus is in the wrong place, because Fallen said that he felt like it was a wake-up call. I'm paraphrasing here, so that's not verbatim, but something along the lines of they felt it was a wake-up call. And people were like, oh, was losing to Wendigo not a wake-up call? When Ships fucking does what Ships did, and he did it to multiple teams, you don't sit there and you go, oh, fuck, we fucked up. You go, this kid just destroyed us. Like, he just bent us over and
he was on his job.
Yeah, right? So he kind of maybe made it feel like they weren't in a position where it was that bad of a loss, and I still don't think it is that bad of a loss. I think that there should still be the chance for all of these players in this team to hit close to their peaks again. Maybe they'll never hit their peak again. Like, maybe that's not possible. But I don't think we're getting even 70% out of these players at the moment. And that's the problem that I have. I know that there is room for them here, but that has to come through an attitude shift. And that attitude shift has to come from the core of the team. So I don't know, is it a work ethic thing? You used to hear about how much Cold Zero used to practice. I don't know. I'm with you. I don't know what the problem is with them not performing right now.
Yeah.
And it's just a shame that every time they go onto home soil, they're either unable to, you know, get the damage done when they're the favorite, like what happened in 2016. I guess Belo Horizonte, they were maybe not a favorite, but they should have at least made it to the grand final. And then this time round, this is abysmal considering, you know, what they're known for and what they've done for that region. So it's heartbreaking on a lot of levels.
I mean, you were talking about the individuals and what they've been known for, basically what they had been known for. The problem is that hasn't been the case. At least, I mean, for Cold Zero, he has actually been keeping up with his level for a long time. Maybe not like the best player in the world level, but he was still very, very high. For the majority of last year and even like towards the start of this year. As we said, this is like this is statistically his worst tournament by far. Well, worst LAN tournament anyway. So like, it's just individual. You have to look at the individuals, especially in Sao Paulo. I mean, like for Cold Zero to basically disappear like this, that's not going to happen again. Let's not kid ourselves. Like if he turned up in the same form that he usually does, this would have looked a little bit differently because they were just missing their best players. So that's one thing that you do have to kind of concede and say, yeah, okay, that's a big problem. And Fair was actually in a very similar position. He actually was somewhere on the line of 0.85 rating or something, alongside with Cold Zero. I mean, the whole team was not doing well. But when two of your stars don't turn up, and nobody else really steps up, that's just a massive issue.
What is it that they've lost? Everyone's spamming 0-10. It's like they've lost
they
last
won 0-5 in the group stage, and then they lost 0-5 in the show match, right? In the aim map thing. So that's the 0-10.
Think about their wins in recent times, right? So they won one map against Wendigo. Viva Algeria doesn't count. You don't get a win in my book for beating those guys 2-0. Beating Ago 2-0, yeah, okay. There's a little bit of merit there. Lost 2-0 to Australis.
With the context of the tournament, that's pretty good, yeah. But
yeah. So their most legit win in recent times is over Renegades 2-0 in Katowice.
Yeah.
Renegades picked into their best map. Or at least what MIBR thought was their best map. And Renegades also thought was one of their best maps. So I guess when you look at it like that. But so it hasn't been good in recent times, and that's one where it doesn't, like, it's not like let's remove one piece of the puzzle here and it'll fix itself. Like that's what we're alluding to, ladies and gentlemen. It's not the sense of this whole team is like, oh, there's one simple fix or something like that. Right now it's just like an overall issue with the entire squad, and there's definitely potential for them to come back to good form. Like I can guarantee you that. It's just whether they can bring their mind around it, because it was this time last year when they fell apart last time. So Taka went to Liquids, where Bolts was fucking stuck on the team. They didn't want the cunt. He was there, left. You know, we don't want any messes like that to happen again. And I'm over. If you watch any of their death segments, you hear me say I'm over talking about time. So they just need to fucking fix it, and fix it as soon as possible. And this is what I mean, how far can they fall? Because we're going to talk about Star Ladder later, but you look at the teams in Star Ladder, if they're not fucking making it in the top 8 of Star Ladder, Jesus Christ, let's sound the alarm bells, because let's get the cops out here, because there's been a fucking murder this team's done. Like, it's a really dire place right now, and mentally, they're probably in one of the worst places they've been ever, I would say.
Yeah, it's a rough spot for them, and I guess it's all down to what time they're going to put into it and try to make this work, and what they can fix going into other events. We'll have to wait and see. It's pretty much the unknown. When it comes to FaZe Clan, though, what are we looking at? Is it just the IGL problem? Is we just going to see them try and trade out another player? Nico stays as IGL? What are you guys thinking?
I mean,
Prof, I got a question for you.
Huh?
I got a question for you. Just tell me what you think about this, because this is what I was saying on the desk, and I don't know if I'm just fucking blind, which is probably true, but it felt to me like this team is having a map pool shift. Like, do you feel that?
You're talking about FaZe.
Yeah.
What exactly did you spot in that, though? I mean, yes.
Well, the fact that they're happy to play Nuke now means that that's something that they've never touched before, and the fact that their Mirage fucking sucks so bad.
Yes.
They're like 1-6 in their last Mirage. Like, is it? Yeah, 1 out of 6 in their last Mirage game.
They're having a shift for sure. I'm not sure if that's. I thought you meant intentionally.
Yeah, no, I mean,
like with Nuke, maybe, yeah, because that's a map that they rarely played before. They did play it. We knew that they did play it, but they weren't really willing to play it into Astralis or anything like that. They just played it against like lower tier teams. So I agree with that. That was curious about this one. They played it twice, didn't
Lost
they?
to Ents, and they beat MIBR.
Yeah, MIBR. There we go. I mean, that's by the way, another detail for MIBR that they actually started playing Nuke, which was curious. It's an interesting choice. Just shortly going back to that though, why did they decide to play it now?
Yeah, it doesn't make much sense.
Why at the point where Astralis are unbeatable on it? Why would you put yourself into that position on purpose? Especially when you actually have like the advantage over Astralis that you don't play their best map, and then you can actually like somewhat pressure Astralis into like at least not their best possible map pool, right? That might be we're basically the only teams that could pressure Astralis' map pool in some way and just like try to take some risks in the veto, because they just knew they weren't going to play Nuke. So that's another thing that's curious about MIBR. What made them think that playing Nuke was such a good idea all of a sudden?
And does it help you? It doesn't really help you with many of the other teams either, right? Because at the same time, most of these teams are banning it out because of Astralis anyway. So it's weird that both MIBR and FaZe have chosen to bring it into the pool. I don't know if they feel that gives them a bit of advantage against lower teams or like teams around the middle of the pack. Maybe that's where they see it. But you're right, because if they were still really good at Mirage and they historically were really good at Overpass, they're two potential until fucking Astralis destroyed Liquid on Overpass in that final. But they were two maps in where it at least looked like pressure points, right? We know Astralis are going to ban out Cache most times, so if you can at least take either Mirage or Overpass, you're in a pretty good position. At this point, why, like, the Liquid thing where they were like, oh, Naf was like, we haven't practiced Inferno that much. I was like, what the fuck did I just hear? Like, I was like, what the fuck? You only need to play Inferno. You don't need to play Nuke. You're going to ban Nuke every time. Just practice Inferno. And then whatever map you want to pick. That blew my mind a little bit when he had that in the post-game. He was obviously very hyped for the Dust 2 win. But let's not get off FaZe. Let's stay with FaZe.
Yeah. Well, I would have to go through the vetoes again, because I know there were some weird like bans from them from what I saw. Like, I mean, particularly, like you said, Mirage is definitely something that has just disappeared from their map pool, like as a great map, because historically they've been great on it. Like there hasn't been a point in FaZe where they weren't good on Mirage, and this is like the first time that has happened.
Oh, Adren says Adren said that's not true. I'm not sure why he said that. Okay, well there you go. It's been solved right there.
Oh, okay.
Adren, the coach, Eric, has just said that he's not sure why he said that. So that's great. That clears it up. So they are practicing Inferno. Because otherwise I was like, they've lost their minds. So it's good to know that they haven't lost their minds. Because I watched that game. If they had converted a couple of those rounds in that first half, they looked like actually very competitive in their second half. I thought, like, if you just watch that second half of Counter-Strike, it was quite a good half. There was a couple of clutch situations which didn't go their way, but maybe if I know ifs and buts and maybes or whatever, but I felt there was like a level where I felt that there was a level of where they could have definitely not beaten them, but gotten to double digits to the point of it seems like, oh, this is a threatening matchup. So that's good that Adren has cleared that up for us, because I thought, Jesus, after I heard that in the interview, I was just flabbergasted at that. But that's good news.
Well, yeah, the wording was like as much, so I'm not sure. Like, we haven't practiced it as much because I don't know what the context was. I remember the interview. It's just like maybe it was like in comparison to some other map that he was talking about, potentially Dust 2 or whatever. I'm not sure. But so yeah, kind of the wording as well. It was kind of weird.
I don't know. The FaZe one's weird. It's hard to talk about FaZe that much because, like, I think we're all under the same agreement that we would like to see Nico not have to in-game lead.
Yeah.
Sure.
So that's kind of where it's at. But Yanko did the interview,
they're just waiting though for someone else to come along, right?
Well, who would let's think about in-game leaders who you could pick up, right? Like, who could you get right now who they would be happy with and respect? You already made a comment earlier, Striker, that you didn't think that they would respect Golden.
Too young.
If Pronax is
too young performance-wise, he hasn't really been up there. You know, doesn't really have results to.
Well, they've got some players that aren't up there at the moment, performance-wise as well.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, sure, but it's just that's another issue that comes with it, right? Like, you're not going to get any game leader into your team that is just not going to help with your firepower, right? Which is already kind of diminished. We keep hearing about a FaZe being this super team. That's not really been true for like a good part of a year now.
So then, like, obviously, if we're saying no to Golden, then like Pronax was the name that was getting rumored and thrown around for a while there. Then you're saying no to Pronax as well, right? Because he has even less output as a fragger.
Yeah, that's not happening.
Right?
He was,
so then,
he was in consideration though.
Really?
Well, yeah, because if you want someone to come in and take charge of the team, right? Like Pronax would have to garner some level of respect. The guy's won majors, right? You have to. I mean,
he's been out of it for so long now.
He's been playing. He just hasn't been playing in a successful manner.
What about Chris J though? How would you
the same
about
respect thing though? The same
Okay, yes, I can see that, but like, if they're looking at how most sports played and the way they played, I feel like that would actually fit FaZe quite well.
Okay, wait a second. Some people in chat are saying Flush has said on his stream that he will most likely return as an IGL to some team. Oh? Could that be a thing? Would make sense if
it was FaZe, but
that would be interesting.
Well, Flush's like style of in-game leading, at least in the past, is very like free-flowing, right, and allowing the players to take territory, take jewels, and then do mid-round calls. And that's like one of the things that was really good about Fnatic of old was their mid-round decision-making and all that kind of stuff. So, look, Flusher in terms of a fragger, he's bringing a lot to the team. In terms of an in-game leader, maybe they don't want somebody to bring too many different like ideas that are convoluted, because when you saw Yanko in MIBR, I'm not saying Yanko brought convoluted ideas. I'm saying Yanko looked like he brought strategy and structure. At least that was from my opinion, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it looked like he was making them do set strats off the bat and that kind of stuff. And then if
they weren't used to, I think that was the problem, right?
And that's probably the same with FaZe right now. There's an adjustment period because obviously towards like the end of having Carrigan in there, we know things tapered off and Nico took over. But even before then, they were now just playing more of like a brawly style. So if you consider that to carry on through with the way that Nico's calling, and then now that Yanko comes in, it's re-educating them on playing a more strategical side of CS. So there will be an adjustment period there, and if Yanko gets to make all the strats and like tell them the order in which he wants to be called, that takes a lot of pressure off Flusher, and then he can just do the mid-round calling while Nico can be free. But I think the biggest point is that Rain and Olaf need to return to some consistency. Like when this team was looking really hot, Rain was fucking amazing, right? Rain was like, holy shit, where it's not where did this guy come from, but we all considered Rain to be the supportive element of the team.
Yeah, and then he just came up as a star.
Yeah, so it's maybe the same thing as we should paint it with a similar brush to what we were talking about with MIBR, in the sense of the players who we look towards at least once upon a time for being big fraggers just aren't anymore, or they're not performing right now. So
I think it has to do with like the shift towards
so much
like
of a change
because of Astralis as well. Just because of the shift that we're seeing. Like the Astralis effect, like look at, we were talking about this last episode, right? We were talking about like these teams, Astralis, even Ants, having like very similar play styles, you know, not allowing individuals to kind of pop off against them as much, at least. And you have to consider that as well. Even Navi, who are obviously very simple heavy, don't really like rely on that in their play style, at least. Like sure, like in the end, like their performances are what pulls them through, but their play style doesn't really revolve insanely around simple and electronic. It's just they have a very slow like default way of playing. So even they aren't really a free flowing team that like relies on individuals in their play style. So it's just the shifts from like the individual style that we've seen from teams like Fnatic, like FaZe. I mean, obviously back in the day NIP, but that's a long time ago, and that kind of still holds true for them. They're not that structured either, but this is something that could be working against some of these players like Olafmeister or like Rain, who are just like having trouble pulling off the same kind of plays that they used to because of this shift.
Well, you get away with a lot less now, right?
Yeah,
like I think that
100%.
Yeah, I think that if you have, there's a no-brainer in me saying this, and it almost feels dumb to even come out of my mouth. But the team that is the most well-rounded right now to play in the Astralis era of Counter-Strike has to be Liquid, but even still, like they that last map, they definitely got blown out of the water. Maybe they expended too much gas after being super excited for winning that opening game of Dust 2. It is a longer day with a lot more games. I'm not trying to make excuses for them here, but I'm glad that we saw them play and they won that map, because it gives like hope for the future. After the final, like on the desk, I was really deflated because of how that last game went. But thinking about it in retrospect, Astralis are so we put them on this massive pedestal of being like so many leaps and bounds ahead of everybody else that the catch-up period has to take time. And I forget that Stewie is still new into the team. Stewie had a much bigger impact in that tournament. Nitro as well. Actually, everybody had moments in that tournament for Liquid, and that's what the scary thing is now. If they can have more tournaments under their belt, or if they can continue to add and grow and add to that pool. The cool thing was, it felt like the attitude of the team, like we question where the heart's going to come from. Maybe they don't need it if they're all like matured to a point where they understand, they understand what they're going up against every time now, right? And that is the uniting force for them. They don't need to, get loud, and they don't need to like jeer and do all that kind of stuff. Obviously, it will happen when they're winning. It's natural, because that progression to beating the king of Counter-Strike right now, it's going to bring it out in you, no matter how reserved you normally are. So for me, it still has to be the 1 and 2 with the Liquid and Astralis show, of course, and then after that, Na'Vi and ENCE have legitimized themselves as a team at this point to be a contender in that regard. But now, I don't know when we want to move forward.
Fuck?
What?
The Don just dropping bombs in subs of HLTV. That's all just Lucas losing his mind and Striker getting confused of what's going on.
I'm not in the chat, so I missed it all.
I didn't quite understand what was going on. I just saw the spam of like
it just broke up the chat.
Gifts of subs.
Was there anything else from? Was there anything else though from?
The only thing I still want to just mention on the whole with like both FaZe and MIBR, like we were talking about with the adjustments that they have to make. Do we think that some of these adjustments will see players never get back to where they were able to perform at that level? Like, because the style, like a looser style, especially on FaZe, right, of how they used to call and how they used to play, does this mean that these players won't be able to reach that potential again, or will it just take even more time? Because my worry is that Olaf, like, we kept saying, oh yeah, we need to see him coming back in and like start to shine a bit more. But could these changes be too drastic? Could it be too much for them to even have a chance to get back to that level, and we see him completely drop off?
If we say that about Olaf, and like if you want to lump other players into that boat from FaZe or MIBR, then you can start saying that about a lot of players, like a lot of guys from NIP for that same reason. Obviously, like you can pick names. I don't even need to say them, but you can start saying that about a lot of the older generation of Counter-Strike. And we did talk about a shifting of the guard. We did talk about the newer generation of these kids coming through, but
different balance now.
Yeah, and I guess it comes back to that same point that we always talk about, is who's in control of these rosters, because you can only gatekeep for so long, and somebody has to be seeing faith in these players for them to be able to stay in their positions, right? So this is where it takes to the next point of how far do they have to fall before something drastic happens. And
also,
that's why,
is it just the playing ability, right? Because you spoke about it yourself before. Also the markability that comes into it, because end of the day there has to be some sort of return on investment if you're not winning tournaments. And if you're still not winning tournaments, building a new lineup, some of these older players with that kind of influence, they are very beneficial to these orgs.
Yeah, and that's where the trade-off has to come in between the idea of, being a championship squad or being a squad that is able to bring in the dollars, right? So, and you don't make changes as drastically as replacing 2 or 3 players at a time. You just replace one guy with a youngster coming up, allow that youngster to prove himself as a star, the fan base builds around him, and then you can now get rid of the next guy. That's just a really long process, though. That's not an overnight fix.
Definitely not.
So we're factoring in so many more things than just, the purity of Counter-Strike ability and if the team has cohesion right now. Look, it's a difficult one to answer, because we haven't really had this happen in our eyes in this same fashion in Counter-Strike before, right? Not on this kind of platform where you have legends of the game who are all dipping down in performance at the same time. And then you're having these youngsters, these 16-year-olds, these 17-year-olds, these 18-year-old kids who are just super hungry for it. And money isn't the name of the game so much for them. Obviously, they do want to make a bank out of it. It's a fantastic way to make some money. But they're coming in because they used to watch Olaf when he was at his best. They used to watch Cold-Zero when he was doing the jumping off shit, and that's what inspired them. And now they've taken Counter-Strike to that next level. It's what we're talking about with like Stewie and those. There's like pure CSGO players, right? They don't have any of those inhibitions of wall banging in 1.6 or knowing how things were in Source, like one-way smokes, all that kind of stuff. So they're just really focused. So we've been talking about changing the guard and stuff for all that time, and that's why the fall of these teams over the next couple of months is where, because the major is earlier, or not earlier, because the major cycle starts a little bit earlier than what maybe a lot of us were expecting, most of these players and teams in my opinion, will have until the end of the Berlin Major. And then if they want, I think what we're seeing right now is just a bunch of teams of VP status. Remember when VP, like they just kept making that's what we're seeing. Guard. Yeah, so we're just seeing that similar thing at this point until it just breaks. The org either goes, enough of this shit, let's fix it, or the players eventually go, well, enough's enough. We're changing ourselves, or I'm retiring, I'm this, I'm that. So all in all, yeah, cool, Counter-Strike.
Now, Chad, because I know you're going to love this moment, right? We got to see the new economy come into effect, but you're winning here. Have a reset. I'm going to give credit to Lucas for that one. Chad, what did you make of it? Because is it the big, like, oh, this is a reason why some things are being more difficult for teams to adapt to and change to, or is it really not that big of a factor now?
So there's an element.
You love it.
There's an element of fear-mongering on my behalf, and it's because I want to avoid the worst-case scenario happening in a matchup where it just like blows up and everybody just goes, this is fucking dog shit, this sucks, this I want to avoid that if possible, and what we need to do to be able to avoid that is define the narrative. And when I say define the narrative, what I mean is we need to be able to work out what it is that and when I say we, I mean the entire Counter-Strike community, Valve, the players, the professionals, everybody wants to either avoid or have in the money system. Now, before, there are a lot of problems, and they've slowly been adjusted over the last, 6, 7, 8 months, however long it's been since they changed that pistol economy thing. We need to be very careful about how we look at all of this information. This is the same with every piece of information in Counter-Strike. The org change getting put in front of everybody's face and going, here, this is an amazing weapon, use it, is the perfect example that we can always use at people either being too naive to look at what sticks out as the problem, or what sticks out as something which could be really good but nobody even looks towards. Same was when the UMP was good but nobody used it, and then I think when I mentioned this last podcast, like Get Right or Flush or whoever it was started using on Cobble and Drop Zone, and I was like, oh, this is viable, now we're going to use it more. With the money situation, we didn't actually see it play into any dire regard in that in Blast at all, and we didn't have like a huge amount of matches over those 2 days, and still a lot of those players are unaware that tally counts up, that it keeps going, the 4+, that it keeps going. I don't know how many threads there have to be about it or how many people have to make posts about it before they understand that, but that's one thing that still a lot of people weren't quite clear on. Now, if you look at the Ents versus Liquid game, it actually happened to both of them late in their respective halves, right, when they were on the CT sides. It happened to both of them, but Liquid could have really fucked Ents. They could have really crippled them, but Ents actually saved a couple of guns, which allowed them to rob one away and make sure that they could buoy their economy a little bit more. But all of that aside, the new money change, this was a conversation that I was having with Peter, and he pointed out that it's not a problem with the new change, it's a problem with the old money system. And I know that different figures in the community have brought up the idea of removing the $1,400 loss bonus altogether, and that could be a debate that could definitely be had. But I think the one thing that we could all agree on is that we want to avoid having a hard reset that revolves around a double eco scenario. Now, the reason for that, and like I always talk about me being a purist of the game, and playing since 1.6 and earlier days like that, but having a hard reset in Counter-Strike, especially when it can hamper you so late in a game. It used to be the losing team that would get affected, right? If, for those who aren't aware, you're getting owned 7-0, you finally win a round, so you've had max loss bonus, and then you get reset back down to 1,400. Well, now that has been flipped around, and the reason that I take such big exception to it being flipped around onto the winner is purely because I don't think that you should be punished for winning. I don't think, and people will be curious about that, like, oh, what do you mean? But it would really have to delve into a lot. And I think Lucas actually has the graph of the Vitality versus North game on Nuke, which could be, we could bring that up, and that could be a good example for me to lightly explain it. I'd need to, get a whole different plethora of ways to go through this. What my biggest, the thing that I'm most scared of is the doomsday scenario. So just so everybody can, again, I say this every fucking podcast, I'm not against fucking change. I like change. Change is good. It's great for everything.
Yeah.
Anyway, let me bring up this stream link so I can see the graph that's up here. So what we want to focus on here is actually the last 5 rounds of the game. So it was a really big comeback being mounted by Vitality on their CT side. That you can see there, Lucas, you see that yellow one there that's on its own in the middle. It's at round 22. My eyes are going, guys. round 22, so that one there. So that's a round that was won, and North could still continue to buy because their loss bonus had built up with the 3,400. You know, the plus situations, they could still get gun rounds, and these were all very close rounds. You know, coming down to the wire, clutches, bombs were getting planted. Lots of money continuing to go into the back pocket of North here because the T side, everything is already cheaper, and every time you get that bomb down, you're getting plus 800. Now, what I don't like here is that if you're getting the 3,400 as your loss bonus and the CTs are not winning by defusal, then they're only getting 3,250. And if these rounds are really close, the CT's weaponry is more expensive. I lost my notepad. I actually lost it in transit, for fuck's sake. But the weaponry across the board is more expensive. You know, a Molotov for T is only 400 for CTs, and Incendiary is 600. A fuse kit comes in at 400. The Ts don't have to buy that. They get the bonus of getting the bomb down with the 800 I just spoke about. All these factors play into now the team on an amazing comeback who's being kept super honest. Something that JW actually messaged me about this. He said that what teams are doing now is they can go for like SMG buys with a 3,400 and they can kill 3 of you and plant the bomb and your economy's fucked, but they can get a full gun round on the board next time. And people might say that's more exciting in a way, but I think that if you completely remove any reward for winning, any reward for actually putting rounds on the board, then you're rewarding the wrong thing. So the change that I would like to see come in, and there's lots of room for debate on this. The first thing is I don't think that it should keep counting up. I think once we hit the 3,400 marker, when you do get reset again or you lose that consecutive round, you shouldn't get 3,400 and it shouldn't like continue. I guess at the late stages of the game, it might not matter as much, but my point is you want to be able to keep them honest at some point. You want to be able to make sure that they maybe have to take like a pistol upgrade. They can't go for a full buy almost every time. So if you make it so that if they lose that round, then they're always going to go back down to 2,900. 2,900 is still a shitload of money when we know how much damage like a scout can do. If you get 2,900, then 3,400, you have so much for a buy. You take like, you can buy a scout, you can have a guy like buying utility and nades, utility and like pistol upgrade. So there's a lot more options and diversity I think comes into play there. So if you don't cap it, that's one option. Obviously we need to see it play out more. This is just my initial thoughts. And then the other one is, for the CT side, completely remove the $1,400 loss bonus. And that is because of all those factors that I was talking about with everything costing more money. So if you remove the CTs will always default to $1,900 as a loss bonus. Sure, they're still going to have to take an eco, but they're not going to have to take a double eco. They're only going to have to take one. And then you leave, the reason that I'm saying leave the Ts at 1,400 is because what you actually do with the Ts then is you're not incentivizing them to buy deagles and try and kill as many of you as they can. You're incentivizing them to buy P250s and a flash and trying to get the bomb down and get that extra 800, which will then facilitate the buy further down the track. So I think you want to keep that as an option. There's so many things to be talked about here. There's so many different opinions. I think we definitely need to get a lot of Counter-Strike minds in for a proper debate. But these are just a couple of my early thoughts. And just again, I really want to reiterate the point that I don't think that this change is bad. I just want to really avoid that doomsday scenario that you kind of see getting painted here in this picture of Vitality doing such a fantastic job to come back, being reset super late. And you can see, Lucas, can you point out on the graphs, show the massive dip with the dotted line. That massive dip right there is their economy in the bin at the end of the game. They're fucked at this point. Like, you are completely fucked on the CT side, especially on Nuke. All the protocol nades needed to stop top rushes, the Molotovs needing to be used on almost all key parts of the map. It just becomes a nightmare. And that's the one thing that I want to try and avoid so that we can make sure that, you know, people aren't getting screwed by those little things. And that is a problem with the old money, not the new money. I just really want to point that out. That's something that that Peter really instilled in me when we had our conversation yesterday or the day before. Saturday.
I think, I mean, you just have to look at, to basically add up the first couple of loss bonuses, which is 1,400 and 1,900. Add them up, that's 3,300, right? For the CT side, what are you going to get for that? Nothing, basically. So if you don't have any other like income, you're not going to be able to buy after losing a couple of rounds. In that case, like if you haven't already saved up something beforehand, you're not going to have enough to buy off just 2 loss bonuses, right? So that I think is the core of the problem, because at the same time, like as CTs though, although everything is more expensive, it is much more likely for you to actually save up something in a loss, because STs, if you lose a round, you're not going to get any money from losing the round. You're just going to get 0 if you survive and you lose a round. As CT, you actually still keep getting that money, which is basically a something that's in the game just exactly to help CTs counteract the problems with their economy, with how much everything costs, because they do have something like 600. Everything costs basically something like 600 more compared to the T's. So that I think is the bigger problem. Just the actual base loss bonus alone, that doesn't really allow CTs to buy even after racking up a couple of rounds in a row. So I agree with you there to get rid of the 1400. But generally, I feel like the late game scenarios will only happen if you're, I mean, not only, but they're most likely to happen only if you're like trying to get too many guns out of the way, or trying to go into retakes that you shouldn't go into, and just like incentivize saving a little bit more in situations where it makes sense, right? So that's another thing. We still have like those things that help CTs buy up more often, even if they have like more expensive guns and just utility and everything.
Well, they obviously have like the tighter choke points and stuff, and they can make more weapons work to close down certain positions, whereas the T's, they have to use utility
they
more so to
expend a lot more to get something. So that's
on
another
most
thing.
Of the maps anyway.
That's how Counter-Strike just works. It's just CTs. Yes, everything's more expensive, but there are also things to counteract that.
What do you think
you
about
expend a little less, you get that bonus for saving.
What do you think about the bonus stacking? Do you think it should stack, or do you think it should?
I don't think
cap
so,
out?
because you should. The thing is, like, if you keep losing after 5-0, if you keep losing past 5 losses in a row, even if you like with the round loss bonus in place, where you obviously, especially as T, like you put the bomb down in one of these scenarios or one of the late rounds, you're going to be able to buy up all the time basically. And if you keep losing past that, I don't see why you should keep getting like a free pass for losing these rounds, and just like keep getting advantages further late into the half for losing 8 rounds in a row or something. I feel like that's too much. I think 5 is more than enough for you to kind of like for the slider to work basically.
I think we like need to unfortunately not play devil's advocate, because Valve are definitely not the devil. I think that people who like demonize them really don't look at the bigger picture here. But a lot of their data does come from matchmaking. You know, the pro scene is one element of this. So if they're seeing games going in matchmaking where it is super one-sided and they feel that these people need to be rewarded to get back into the game, that's kind of where they're going to, you know, get a lot of their information from. So I spoke to a couple of players in Sao Paulo just briefly, kind of just briefing them on my doomsday scenario. Some of them weren't aware about the thing stacking still. A few of the other things, I spoke to MBK and JW quite a lot in Twitter DMs, and they gave both 2 different perspectives. Both thought that there needed to be changes, but they were from 2 different positions. So it was cool to hear all those different opinions, and I'd love to be able to kind of get some form of a summit. I know they have the player association, but it'd be cool just to hear all of their opinions, just to know what they think, because this is something that we really need to do like I said at the start of my little rant, but it's about defining the issue before we change something, because of before we make a change, right? We really want to decide where we want to take it, because right now we're knee-jerking towards like the symptom comes in and we're straight to the doctor thinking, fuck, how do we fix this? But we're not looking at, we don't, put the right food into our body in the first place. We need to think about, with a lot of these problems that have cropped up in the past, how we can go about avoiding them in the first place. So if everybody agrees, like I don't know if everybody does, but if everybody agrees that double eco should just not be a thing in Counter-Strike, which I can get behind that, then we need to change that base level of money. There's a couple of other things as well, like my brain just had it and it just dropped it. Fuck, I'm getting the jet lag.
Understandable.
I'm trying to think, because it was a good point.
Look, the main question is, what did Valve attempt to do with this change, right? And how does the stacking help with that? Because I'm not sure that it necessarily does help with what we thought was like the reason for this change, right? Which is to basically avoid the double ecos or whatever. At least that's what we assume the aim of this update was, just to help teams like get back or come back from big disadvantages. But there has to be a cap at some point to how much you're gonna allow teams to fuck up, basically. Because like if you lose 8 rounds in a row and then you start coming back, you shouldn't keep getting, like, okay, you lose 7 rounds in a row, you win the next one, or next, even 3 basically, and you keep getting the max loss bonus the second you lose the next round. And that I feel like is a little bit overpowered, because that basically allows you to buy up for the rest of the half, no matter what happens, basically, like every single round. So that's
when I say incentivize losing, like when I say that that's obviously like the most hard stance you could possibly take. When I say I don't like the fact they incentivize losing. Now, if you're still winning the rounds, you're winning the rounds. That's how people will look at it, and I think that's how Valve would probably think about it too. But Counter-Strike, for me, is a game that I'll say it again. I'll say it until everybody hears me fucking say it. The way that when I talk to Anders says, like, if you had Counter-Strike and you took it to a game developer now, any game developer in the world, and we said, hey, we want a game that's 5v5, we want it to be like, you know, an even game when, you know, with all these different elements in it, but if it's a 1-on-5 situation, we still want the player to be able to win it. How would you solve that problem? And most modern game developers would solve that problem by buffing the HP or the ammo or the armor, or like give the guy like a super gun, or fucking spawn in some fucking dogs so the guy can run around and kill like free players with dogs or something, you know? Like, that is what a modern game developer would do. But the great thing about Counter-Strike is a 1v5 is possible. Do the other people need to fuck up? Yeah, but that is the beauty of the game, that you need to play a situation perfectly, and other people need to make mistakes that you can take advantage of to win those situations. And that's why we love Counter-Strike. I really want us to avoid the fact where every single round in this game is the same. If we want to play that, I played that professionally. That was my fucking life. I played the CGS. We started with $16,000. There still had to be ecos, because we had teams who'd buy fucking 3 orbs. But you'd like eco once in that entire system. And as well as that, we only played MR9, so first to 10 rounds, guys. If you want every round of this game to be competitive, so it has guns and there's no layers, there's no depth, there's no controlling the economy, there's no making sure you punish people for dumb mistakes, if it no longer becomes like interesting to go for retakes, or it no longer becomes interesting to save, and you may as well just fucking do one option every single time, then every single round of Counter-Strike becomes exactly the same. And one thing that Zedek has brought up, and I had a similar thought process to it when I read his tweet, was from a storytelling perspective, the narrative completely shifts. Because in the late stages of a game, and somebody tweeted at me and disagreed with this, and that's fine, you can disagree, that's cool, this is just my opinion, is that if somebody wins a 1v3 late in the game, but you know that the team that you just, you know, normally a 1v3 situation late in the game results in somebody getting money fucked, or you just like taking away so many guns that they're in a hard position. If it results late in the game that you win a sick 1v3, it's amazing, like it blows everyone's mind. But you no longer have the same effect on the economy and the ebbs and flow of the game. What you're actually detracting from there is the excitement level, because it doesn't mean as much. You know, you could just play the next gun round and then they just beat you. Okay, well, now they just beat you. You're 1v3, it doesn't count. The cool thing about that was the consequences of that 1v3. Not just the fact it was a sick play, but what it meant for the overall storyline of the game. And if we end up finding Counter-Strike in a position where every round is the same, or every round is basically a gun round, guys, we don't need 30 rounds of CS anymore. You know, we don't need it anymore. It's not necessary. We can play less rounds. We could have less round time. We could change so many different things, because you're moving away from the core elements that made the game exciting. And I'm not saying Valve are doing that, and I'm not saying that this update does that. I'm just saying that we need to make sure that if everybody finds the same things that I'm saying as exciting elements of the game, we need to protect them in some regard. And some of the old things were shit. They've been adjusted, they've been changed, and they're no longer in the game. And I'll agree with these changes. And I think, you know, there's some things that are good, there's some things that are bad. But we just need to make sure that we never move too far away from what makes Counter-Strike the most exciting esport for everybody watching this podcast right now, for everybody who tunes in and watches the major, for everybody who gets excited, for everybody from Australia who wakes up at 4 a.m. to watch a fucking CS game. We can't move too far away from that, because we'll just become like every other game that is just bullshit. Like, I shit on games like Call of Duty. They play 5 rounds. They don't even have footsteps, guys. The best clutch in one of those stupid fucking esports awards was a Call of Duty clip. And I didn't realize. I was like, didn't the guy hear him running around? Someone explained to me that there's a fucking perk in that game where you can't hear footsteps. And I'm just... The skill level in Counter-Strike is so deep. There's so many elements. There's so many nuances. There's so many details to this game that I love, and I love to explain to you. But when they get removed, it like fucking kills me a little bit, and it should kill you guys too, because you guys fucking love this game, and we don't want to just have a game. We basically become
like everyone else.
Yeah, fuck that. We have the most unique thing in the world. Let's fucking keep it.
Economy is definitely the biggest part of Counter-Strike that it has over anything else, basically. Because I don't even know about any other game that has this deep of an economic a feature to it, basically, and that's something that makes Counter-Strike really special. But just to before we annoy any more fan bases at large, like Call of Duty fans and stuff, I'm gonna get back to the original discussion about how to fix so that we don't have double ecos. I feel like just removing the 1400 bonus is more than enough, just because of the, like I said, if you add up like the first couple of round loss bonuses, which would have been 1900 and 2400 as it is now after pistols, basically, you're allowed to buy up after you lose, like after you take one eco. If you take a full eco, if you lose a round, take a full eco, you're gonna have 4300 no matter what. With if the 1400, the first bonus was removed completely and it just got pushed, and then you just racked it up over 4 rounds instead of 5. I feel like that would be more than enough, just because of how much you can buy for that amount. Even as CT, sure, you're not going to be able to get everything, but you're going to be able to. Teams buy at this sort of price point all the time, just because they can't let the other team rack up too much economy. They already buy at 4300. If everybody has 4300 in a team, they're going to buy in 90% of cases, just because of like trying not to let the other team get too ahead.
Yeah,
basically.
Especially with the org now
as
well.
Is more. I'm sorry.
Especially with the org, like it means less utilities needed.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's just it already incentivizes you to buy up with that amount, and you're going to get a solid buy anyway. Maybe a couple players will get the M4 or like an AUG, and the rest will get some UMPs or some sort of an SMG or like maybe a FAMAS. By the way, can they fucking
just fix
address the FAMAS, please?
Just the burst fire.
It doesn't even have to be like, okay, sure, that would probably help, but I think the stats of the gun aren't particularly impressive either. Like compared to some SMGs, like sure, you get a little bit more range, but like if you're a little bit creative, you can just get rid of that with an SMG completely. You can just play a little bit closer angles and a little bit different setups, and you can just use an SMG that's just going to be better because of the movement bonuses, basically. That you can run around a little bit.
For those who don't remember 1.6 days, go into YouTube and type Zneel, Z-N-E-E-L, famous, and watch him. And like he was a fucking master with that.
He was basically in 1.6. He was a guy who preferred FAMAS over the M4, no matter what. He never bought the M4. Basically, he only bought the FAMAS because it was actually quite viable in 1.6 because of the burst.
Yeah. I guess you made brought up a good point though about the weapons though. So I guess we can maybe just delve into this if we can, Banks.
At this point, like my I disappeared at the beginning of the economy segment, hence why I haven't spoken so much. Literally, I said about my fucking toilet, there is now a big fucking crater in the floor, which is why I ran off, because it hurts. So I'm guessing I'm fucked anyway. So we can just let this shit run, because I'm calling a plumber after this bitch.
Quite literally.
Every sense.
So the org, I think a lot of people are still asking for that to go up in price. I think that you could, if you want, maybe chuck an extra 100, 150 on it, just because it still is. I was looking at a couple of stat lines, and it's being used more, like, I know that AWPs aren't used by everybody, but I think it's like detracting from the amount the AWP is used, because there's certain players who are normally primary AWPers who I'm seeing use the org over the AWP. Like, obviously economic situations come into that, but there's certain times with that. So I don't know, I like it. I like the org, but maybe if, for argument's sake, if people really wanted to adjust the price a little bit there. I do like the fact we're seeing more of the M4A1S though, right? Because I think people are using it situationally, like it's a playstyle thing, like what you just spoke about with the FAMAS there. It becomes like, obviously you're not going to get as many spam down kills as quickly because it doesn't have the same fire rate, but people use it more like a laser beam, like they used to take those kind of more stop and fight duels. And then I've even seen players with those extra fire bullets, especially WSG, be able to finish off a kill or two that they wouldn't normally. So I think it's adding more versatility for sure.
I like that a lot, but like, the FAMAS I remember doing some research about this when I was writing about the UMP. and kind of like coming up with reasons why the UMP was used at that time, because it was used at the expense of a FAMAS, basically, because the price point was quite a lot lower, but the stats were very high for what the gun actually was, right? It was like 1600, right? Was the UMP. No, not even that. That's at one point. That was changed, I think. But anyway, like I was doing research about that, and the FAMAS hasn't been changed since something like late 2013, if I remember correctly. I would have to check, but it hasn't been touched forever, basically.
Yeah.
So that's a big issue that I see with the FAMAS, and just like with Valve completely ignoring the weapon, because that I think would help diversify weapons a lot. Because sure, some players actually buy the weapon, but most of them will just prefer an SMG over it just because of how cheap it is and how close in stats it is to a FAMAS.
And we think of any player that still picks up the FAMAS like on a regular basis.
I see Elige, like Elige buy it up sometimes when he doesn't really have it, and like I see a lot of players buy it, but just not very often. It's just very, very rare.
Yeah. When I was still playing, I was stubborn. I'd keep buying it, and Azza would always be like, "What the fuck are you doing, bro?" And I was like, "It's good, you know, I like it." He's like, "I will 1v1 aim map you right now with any SMG, obviously not the fucking Bison, and I'll beat you." Obviously, he's a better player than me. There's no arguing about that. But he fucking rinsed me. I was like, Jesus, all right, I won't buy the FAMAS anymore. I got the message. I fucking learnt my lesson after that one. So, yeah, for me, until they do something with it, it is pretty trashed here, unfortunately.
Just to get a little bit above people are asking at the same time if we're talking about FAMAS.
I think the Glil's fine. Glil's like is almost as good as an M4, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's quite similar, and yeah.
Just doesn't feel as potent as the AK because it's not.
No, I mean,
it's not.
Like,
there's no
the
comparison.
AK, you get so many advantages like in damage and one shots and stuff. So that makes sense. Like, I'm not saying the FAMAS should be on par with an M4. It's just it should be either better than the SMGs, or at least like as cheap as the SMGs for people to actually be incentivized to use it, because at this point there aren't many advantages that it has. Basically over the SMG it's basically just range. It's not even damage wise that it isn't very much better.
Give us a FAMAS that was very similar to, like, I remember you being able to hold, like, say long A on Dust 2 with a FAMAS and 1.6, and you would literally, as long as you just on point, you know what you're doing with a weapon, you can just rip them apart. Like, we should fucking get to that point. Let's have that. That'll make it more viable. I'll take that. Viable burst FAMAS. Right, how much more time do you guys want to spend on this now before we go on a StarSeries?
I mean, there isn't much else to talk about, honestly, in terms of like weapon diversification. By the way, they also made the shotguns cheaper. I'm not entirely sure that it really affected anything so far.
We saw it more at WSG than we did. We saw it more at WSG than we did in Sao Paulo. Yeah,
at Blast I didn't really see many people. Maybe it has to do with the economy as well, because like obviously we're seeing a little bit, but like quite a lot more gun rounds, like significantly more. So there aren't really that price points where it makes sense to buy a shotgun over an SMG or over a rifle. You're not going to do it. I feel like Valve only did this for like early rounds and anti-ecos and stuff like that, because otherwise it doesn't really make sense to buy it.
It's really good on a force buy, right? Especially on the CT side. You think about the places on maps that you could really use to lock down positions, and almost if you're getting like a kill with some of them, you feel like you've got your worth, right? So maybe we'll see it come into play a little bit more in the future, but all in all, not a lot to report about the shotguns at the moment.
All right, well, let's move on to StarLadder, StarSeries Season 7, guys, because that is where it's going to get very interesting. We're going off to China, Shanghai. Now, okay, we don't have Astralis there, but we've got Big, we've got Ents, FaZe.
Makes it more interesting, right?
Yeah, exactly. As much as we talk about, everyone goes, oh, it's boring. No, watching Astralis play isn't boring because they're fucking phenomenal at the game. But it is nice every now and again when they choose not to go to a tournament and we get to see what the others can do. So we've got MIBR there, we've got Na'Vi.
So basically, what we're calling this is a lower tier tournament.
Oh.
I mean, whatever doesn't have Astralis. Look, at this point,
you can't say
I'm gonna defend this, right? Look at the level. No.
They even raised their prize money from last time. What it was, basically, like if 500.
If you compare this to, I'm trying to come up with like a tournament. Say the E-League, the first E-League major, where it was like Astralis were, well, maybe not with SK at that point because they had a stand in there, but whatever. But let's compare this like an event like like this to a major back in 2016 or whatever, where you had, say, 4 teams that were like able to go toe to toe, and 4 elite teams basically. Now we have 1 elite team that is Astralis, and then we have like the second tier.
So you trying to say any tournament Astralis isn't at is then a second down?
Technically, yes, because there's nobody even close to Astralis at this point.
Can I please get a fuck striker in chat Twitch, because he's just fucking lost it at this point.
So that can't be like, I understand that from like a statistical or like a, you know, being really cut and dry perspective, that's the case because you want to see teams beat Astralis or teams try and beat Astralis, right? But I don't think that if you look at, let's first of all look at why certain teams would have skipped this event, because you would have gone from China to Brazil to China.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's true.
Like, holy shit, can you imagine? That's fucking insane. So
and that's within like what, 2 weeks is it?
It's like 3 weeks.
What is it,
3 weeks? Because this week's a lull, right? So WSG into Sao Paulo
this
into
is 5
a week.
days, 4 days based, or like 3 with
They start
like, their
on
media
Saturday.
days and stuff.
Yeah.
Like that's 3 days. 3 days from now, they're probably going to be in China already. And
So I think they're flying on Tuesday, Wednesday, right?
You only flew back from Sao Paulo yesterday, right?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So that's 4 days that you have at home before you travel to China.
ENCE, NIP, and MIBR are the 3 names who will be doing that circuit, right?
Okay. Just going to touch back on that, right? WSG ended March 17th. So teams flew back March 18th. So they were home. Let's say they were home March 18th. Sao Paulo started on the 22nd. So they had to be there in like the 20th because they have like the media day before. So that's 2 days after they came back home. They had to be in Brazil. And 3 days after they came back from Brazil, 4 days after they came back from Brazil, they have to be in China. Let's just
so people can
that.
understand why NIP and ENCE, when we paint that for you, pulled out of WSG, right? People can clearly understand that, right? So I think when we look at this tournament, I don't think that this, you know, becomes a tier 2 tournament. I think that when you have, if Liquid was there, it would be everybody I wanted to see there. And I think that this kind of feeds into what I was talking about with how far can these certain teams fall. Because of this kind of tournament here, it feels like there's almost no excuse for FaZe and MIBR to not make the top 8, right? If they don't make the top 8 of this tournament, then it's a very damning thing for them. And there's so many cool storylines. Like, we want to see where Navi's at. We now know where ENCE is at. So every time we see ENCE continue with a repeat performance, they now go in my mind, as an on-par favorite with Navi. They're also the defending champions of the StarSeries, so they won in Season 6. Obviously there wasn't a lot of top-tier teams that attended. But Navi and ENCE for me are the 2, and I actually think the type of CS that I saw Navi play at the major, I really enjoyed it. So if I get more of that, I'm very happy.
And I feel like Navi are going to be so fresh compared to everyone else, not just
or they didn't practice at all banks, and they're just
don't say that. No,
anything's possible with these guys, right?
To me, this was like, yes, okay, this is not.
Yeah, maybe Simple has like a secret child coming or something. We don't know.
I actually like that Vitality. I like that Vitality replaced Hellraisers, because I think that Vitality is better than Hellraisers. I feel like
they should have been there from the first place.
Yeah. I think this is what you were saying though about the Fnatic thing. Like, the invites were probably done before that window of time, you know. But I guess here, for me, I'm really excited to see NRG. I'm really because they disappointed beyond all means, right, at that major. That for them was such a fizzle. So I still consider them a very good team, and no one can argue that Tarek's not a personnel upgrade from Fugly. Nobody could say that. They might say it could detract from supporting elements, and maybe other people have to pick up the slack. You can say that. I can see that. But you can't say that this isn't a personal upgrade over for NRG, especially from the experience perspective. That's a really big one that they get, right? Tarek's won a fucking major. The guy was in-game leading, winning a major. And that does mean a lot, right? That's a confidence level factor right there that he has. So I'm excited for them. I don't want to. They're not my dark horse because they're a really good. Maybe should we pick the top 8 teams we think are going to go through?
Yes, the top 8 teams. We can,
Navi ends 100%.
I mean, we can easily start with Navi ends. Yeah,
we're doing our pick'ems without the client.
Yeah, basically.
I think I'm going to say this.
You said FaZe on my BR. Basically, there's no excuse, so they have to be there as well.
I honestly think Renegades will make top 8.
NRG Renegades, so we need 2 more.
NRG 2 more.
So it's. I
don't have enough confidence in MIBR at the moment.
Yeah, I don't know about NIP. I don't know about North. That's
Or
for FaZe and MIBR, I'd put them on the cusp. I'd put those teams playing in the 2-2 matches, right?
Yes.
I would have them playing in the 2-2 matches because we are doing the Swiss, right? And it is best of 3, so now a lot more depth of map pool is going to come into play here. So that's when like you look at Pain Gaming and Spirit, and you kind of like turn your nose up. And it's not because you don't think that they have like players who are good at the game. It's because you know that they don't have enough experience to have deep enough map pools to beat 3 good teams in a best of 3.
Well,
like,
let's just start from the bottom then. 0-3, we probably have Pain and Panda, right?
Most likely.
Yeah.
But also you have to look at Rogue and think about what their motivations are, because they basically that's a dead team.
You at the moment.
That's like we talk about dead teams like being those that like already have one player like with one leg out. This is an entire team that no longer exists.
Yeah.
So let's consider that as well. So I would put them at like 1-3 at best.
They're with like
I would
Spirit
put them
on
at like
Spirit,
potentially
Spirit and Rogue
Panda
1-3.
yeah. Yeah,
Spirit down
Rogue,
there.
1-3. So
now
2-3.
it gets messy, right?
Yeah, now it gets a lot harder because
Big
I guess
really
Tyler,
bad with Zentaris.
I guess I would put Tyler there just because of how they didn't look any better at the major.
And they just lost to Vici.
Oh yeah, that's true.
It was a best of 5 where they started a map up. I know it was online, but fucking hell.
Now the thing with
I put
Tyler
there, and from that point on, it gets kind of hard.
I'd put Tyler and North.
I don't know about Big, man. I'm not entirely sure.
So this is Big's results recently. They lost to Valiance 2-0. They beat Heroic 2-0. They lost to Windigo 2-0. They lost to Ents at the major 2-1.
Yeah.
This is all online.
So their last
right?
their last 3 series have been online,
match.
besides the Ents one.
Yeah.
But I mean, Zentaris is I don't want to say he's the problem, because he's not a problem. Right. He is having a problem in this team. In that Valiance game, he went -22. He only had 20 kills over Dust 2 and Mirage. Those are 2 maps that you'd normally put pretty high in the wheelhouse of a player like Zentaris, right?
That's the way he can frag out.
Gobri had the highest rating. He didn't have the most frags, but he had the highest rating in that Valiance series. So,
I'm just curious about how much, like, how they addressed, or whether they readdressed the yapping issue, if Tapson was perhaps going to go a little bit more hard on it, or how that's going to change, because I feel like at the major it was fairly undefined, and it almost looked like they played it off feel and not really have like very set rules about like when do we pick up the op, when we don't. So I think that's going to be interesting as well. But yeah, Zentaris is definitely a question mark here. You have to consider like the communication issue still, because like we know him not to speak English, let alone German. So like if Gobby has to play that like translator role and kind of like try to do 2 jobs at once, I'm not a particular fan of that. But I guess we'll see at the event itself if something has changed around everything.
Well, this definitely is no offense to Smooya. I don't mean this to come across, but what I mean is if Smooya had trouble doing it, then Zentaris is going to have a real fucking difficult time doing it, right? It's like Smooya as a native English speaker, and they're all trying to speak English for him. Like, German is not a very easy language to learn, but you can definitely pick up little bits and pieces if you're hearing it all the time, right? Especially as an English speaker. So,
Zentaris as well. His English was like he obviously done some English interviews and stuff, but he was always very unconfident with it as well.
Sure, it's a massive step. I think that people who don't speak English as a native language and saddle up and do interviews or do anything,
it's amazing, right?
It's amazing, because the ignorant people like you and me, Banks, who only get taught one language, and that's kind of just the way it is.
I just have to tell you what just happened. I literally turned around because I had a feeling somebody was behind me, and I literally just saw. I got scared by the fucking backdrop because I'm not used to it being behind me. So I jumped. Because I saw the backdrop behind me, I didn't realize.
I thought you were going to say some shit like, oh, Prof just turned up behind you or something.
No, I swear to God, I was just like, I just had this weird feeling, like based on something I heard in the house or something, that someone was behind me. I live with my mom, by the way. She's the only one.
I'm waiting for my toilet to just fall through the fucking floor at this point.
Whatever. Fuck it. I just had to say something because that was clearly visible on the stream.
Okay, someone said in chat, Zentaris is learning German in private school. He's capable of giving basic info. But the thing is, regardless of your learning, and especially if he's learning, props to him, but changing up your language and how you communicate, it's so fucked, right? It's like such a different beast when you're so used to doing it in your native language. It's slower. You have to think about it. There's so many variables you have to kind of take into consideration there.
It's under pressure moments as well, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you say one wrong thing, that's it, right? You're fucked.
I think the really cool thing here is if we do our little draft again when it comes out on Wednesday, the fantasy draft will come out on Wednesday. When we do it then, we'll probably go in a little bit more in depth, especially in this player stuff. Yeah. So I don't know how we're going to release that content, if we're going to do it live. We'll work it out when we get there. But
I guess we'll do like some sort of a video around it. Especially if we get a lot of people, we can just like do it, whatever.
People in chat, do you want to see something on Wednesday evening if we can work out the time where we do another live show of our fantasy broadcast for Shanghai? Let us know.
Let's pick our top 3. Let's top three for the tournament, because I feel like we've basically covered the teams who there's the fringe teams. Like the fringe teams we could sit here and debate on fucking forever, right? Like we could sit here forever talk about the teams on the fringe, and we've already said that we can't. We just, it's a wait and see for FaZe and MIBR if they're going to be playing better form. So my top 3 in no particular order, I think, is going to be Na'Vi, ENCE, and then the third one it's actually not easy, is it?
See, I was going to go Na'Vi, ENCE, and then NRG.
Yeah, that's a fair shout. You know what?
It's the unknown one in NRG, but I just really love Tarek going onto that lineup, and I think he offers a lot to a lineup that, yes, okay, we saw them do shit at the major on that last part, but I think that this is what they needed because it had been so long with that core roster, right?
I'm gonna make a real dumb one here, but the NRG one is a fair shout. Like that's a really good shout. I think like people could argue for Renegades as well, but I'm gonna go really dumb here. I'm gonna go like fucking off reservation. I'm gonna do something which I never do. I'm gonna go fnatic are gonna make top 4.
Shit. Okay.
I never go like off reservation and do like dumb kind of predictions like that. But
you changed it from 3 to 4 though, Chad. If you can do that,
top 4,
for me.
I mean, top 3, top 4 is the same thing.
Okay,
there's a third 4. There's
no so for top 4, then if I'm adding another team in there, it definitely wouldn't be fucking Fnatic.
Is there no third place Saturday finally? I didn't even check.
According to the schedule, so the Saturday is quarterfinal.
Third and fourth is the same. Third and fourth is the same.
Yeah. Okay. Finally,
it's a show match and then the grand final. So it'd probably be something like Chinese.
ENCE, Na'Vi grand finals, and then we've got Renegades and NRG. Third, fourth.
I feel like MIBR will just turn up.
You reckon? You could.
I'd love it to happen.
I think it's hard to see Cold Zero and Fair both like disappear from a tournament again like this.
I'm just worried about their travel schedule, and yes, they're used to disappearing at many tournaments.
That could definitely
I think the biggest factor for MIBR is that things have not gone well for you so far. You're in a point where you're not taking any breaks. Yeah, you've had multiple events back to back, and you're now going to fucking China.
They get like 3 days at home. They don't have to travel right now. They get to chill in Brazil. They don't have to go anywhere. So most of these guys will actually have a couple of days to kind of recoup, right? And when you come into best of threes in a Swiss format, the most forgiving format possible, like it is for the best teams, it's the most forgiving format possible. There is an opportunity there. I don't know why I'm saying Fnatic. I feel like it's the jet lag. If it comes back to the next week and Fnatic come last, I'm citing the fact that I literally flew from Brazil this time yesterday.
Just remember, jet lag is a fine excuse unless Prof uses it, and then he's not allowed it because fuck Prof.
I'm gonna.
You can have it, Chad. Striker can have it. I can even have it. But Prof, you're never getting no jet lag excuses. You don't do enough work as it is.
Yeah. I like the fact that we're going to see so many maps from all of these teams, basically, just because of how little we know about some of these teams' map pools and stuff. Like NIP, for example, like we saw them play fucking 5 different maps, which is insane, by the way.
Yeah.
And Blast, just to touch back on NIP, which we actually didn't really talk about when it came to Blast, because they were just like one of those middle of the road teams that, like, basically NIP as we know them. Like, they surprised a couple of times, and that's pretty much it. They beat FaZe in that opening game, as I predicted, by the way. I actually got that right. But then, like, okay, they beat MIBR. That was the second win they got, and then they lost to everybody else fairly convincingly. Well, actually not against Astralis. They played us 2 again, and that was pretty close again. But
probably
still,
foot off the gas moment for Astralis
there. Yeah, that's for sure. Fuck, what was my... Oh, yeah, they played 5 different maps, and I feel like that was because they didn't get any practice. Basically, so they figured, like, fuck it, we're not going to be prepared enough on any of these maps, so let's just play all of them, basically. I think that was kind of what their thinking was, because even their vetoes weren't very, like, telegraphed or anything. They just kept vetoing different things aside from what was it, Cash? I think they banned Cash everywhere.
They're an interesting one there. I was saying on the analyst desk in Brazil that I thought it was good for the team to have more defined roles, and that was mimicked in an interview with Lecro, who said that he prefers it when it's like that. And NIP is the team. They're like the VP of yesteryear. You can never really count them out. Like the VP when they were still kind of threatening, right? Like they maybe weren't the best always, but they could always like strike from a distance and really pull in an upset or make it to the final or make it to a semi. I think that's where NIP are right now. And if we did like a dream team segment on one of the couch things where we were talking about Swedish making the best Swedish team with all the players at the moment. Yeah, and I didn't say Reds, but now that I've think about it more and more, Rez, I think, it has to be one of the best prospects in all of Sweden at the moment. And prospect sounds so like it's not meant to sound like I'm like undervaluing him or anything, but like as like a star for a team, I think he's fucking like legit as fuck.
And he's still pretty young, isn't he? He's like 20, 21.
Yeah, he's not old, that's for sure. I know he had his breakout, the IEM Oakland event, where he got MVP at that event, and he played like really sick, but it was gimmicky in a way that he like had certain moves that just always worked. Now he's definitely diversified his game, and he's a lot more across the board, like more of a consistent player. So I'd definitely throw Rez back into that mix if I was doing that segment I did just the other day. But yeah, I like the Counter-Strike in the middle of the pack right now. Like it's very top heavy with Astralis, Na'Vi, ENCE, and Liquid. Obviously Astralis well and truly above those other three that I mentioned. But then after that, it's like it's a shit show, but in a good way. It's a shit show in a good way that with the teams that we expect to do good who aren't doing good, it's really opening the door right now for other teams to come in and start legitimizing themselves. And every big win you get over one of these names, even if they're falling off a fucking cliff, that builds you and your popularity and your fan base and this and that. So I kind of like that it's a bit of a mess right now. It's just a shame that nobody can seem to touch Astralis, but we're really lucky not to have them at this event. I hate that I'm saying that, but and actually we won't have them at an event until Miami, right? So and that's just another blast one with the 6 teams. So you won't be seeing them have to go toe to toe in a really strenuous format for some time. So I think StarSeries with the amount of games we're going to have, it's a really good opportunity to feel out where all these teams are at. It's a really good opportunity to really suss out this economy update, take a deeper look. Hopefully, some more players can think about it and talk about it and really see how they feel, and we can keep going from there.
Yeah, but well, the point that I was making was that it's good to see a lot of these teams play a lot of best of threes. They're going to get to play at least 3 best of threes, basically, between 3 to 5 in the group stage alone. That's very good. MIB are another team like that who we still, even after a couple of tournaments, we still don't really have a very good idea of where their strengths lie, because they had like you said, they didn't even play like the teams that should be able to battle them, like at WSG. So that's another team that I'm looking forward to seeing, like a lot of these vetoes and the maps that come through. Basically, like see their priorities in the map pool, because at this point they could be playing all 7 maps. They probably are, I guess, because they've actually played every single map like in the past couple of months since they got together. But like how much they prefer one over the other against which teams and stuff like that, that's just going to be very interesting. That's kind of what I like this format for, just because, especially with how this year has been panning out with the first couple of months, where like some of these teams actually did play tournaments, but a lot didn't, and a lot of them didn't really get to play that many maps. We still don't have a very good idea of any of these teams' map pools, basically. Yeah, maybe aside from like Na'Vi. Well, aside from like Na'Vi and ENCE, who we've seen a lot, and obviously Na'Vi have been around like with this lineup for long enough. But those 2 teams are basically, I'm just running through the list. Maybe Renegades as well. They showed a lot at the major that they could play a lot of maps. So that's another team that we're pretty clear on.
I think a big chunk of them stayed in Europe boot camping as well. So yeah. I think that they should be definitely well prepared. It's good that they are continuing to do that while they can, because when Pro League season kicks off, obviously they're going to have to be in the States for that. And a thing that I think is really good for these kind of teams is once you put yourself on the map a little bit more, the invites start flowing. So if you are a team based in North America, Renegades aren't at home anyway, guys. So for them to go spend more time in Europe, it's like it doesn't really matter whether they're like me. You can be anywhere in the world, it doesn't really matter because it's not your home. You just go somewhere. So for them to spend as much time as possible in Europe practicing, and they can alleviate the stress of needing to be in North America to qualify for everything, that's really good. That's fucking great.
Yeah.
I'm gonna call it the trail of life, basically.
Yeah,
you can just go live anywhere you want.
I rocked up today, and the woman met me here to give me the keys, and I had 1 suitcase. She was like, "Is that all you got?" I was like, Yeah,
all I need,
that's
man.
my life. You know? So
that
it's
is in one go.
So yeah, it's kind of cool that they get that opportunity now. Did we get any questions?
Yes, we've got a few questions. So we ready for question time?
We done with StarSeries? With the start?
Yeah, I think that's all we can do until we go over, obviously, do the fantasy side of things.
Yeah, we'll go into it more with the fantasy stuff.
Yeah, we're definitely going to go much more in depth.
All right, so I've taken some questions from chat, but if you guys have got any more, do put them in there. Prof, as you're doing nothing, you useless fuck, you can collate some of these questions and put them in Discord for us. The first one, where was it? 2 seconds. So we've kind of touched on this a little bit, but it's like, do you think C9 should pick up someone young in the NA scene? They said like Tenzera, Infinite, etc. Now we spoke about that last week, I think it was, where we said bring and take a chance on some of them guys. But obviously we've also covered the fact that they fucked up with letting some of these players go, like Som and other players to different teams, right? So they've already kind of made their bed in it. But is there any other players that would like? Because I remember we spoke about the Ents thing where I was very much saying, a bit of experience mixed in with a lot of the young guns and bringing up like that, like the almost pure CS:GO players. Is that now the best course of action for C9?
From my perspective, no. My perspective is buy. You have the biggest brand in North America. You are still, even though I say Liquid's North America's team, but Cloud9 is still such a huge brand that they should be able to buy whoever they want and build a North American squad. Build a squad out of players from these other teams. Obviously, don't touch anyone in NRG or Liquid. Let them stay where they are. Grab from everywhere else and make the next best team. And then someone else can come in and take the new kids. Like Steel, unfortunately, is just going to be that guy who's going to have to groom everybody. He's going to be the Hunden of North America and have to groom all these players. Or the MSL, you know, just to groom them for the bigger teams. Because unfortunately for Steel, unless Valve ever change their mind or a new game of Counter-Strike comes out soon, he's going to find himself in the same position where
it's so fucked.
You know, he offers a lot. He's a very smart player. He's a very good in-game leader. He offers a lot to his team, but he's just going to get fucked by this rule over and over again. And that's, you know, he's going to have to probably come to terms with that, and he probably has come to terms with that, you know. So this is what I'm saying. Cloud9 should use their stature, influence, and their, you know, back pocket, their fucking wallet, to start buying and build a North American team and let these Euros go home. And let them go to be parts of the puzzle elsewhere. Because I spoke about the fact that I think Keo could fit well into Vitality. Yep. You know, I think that, you know, Golden as an in-game leader of FaZe could be a cool little prospect, or of a Swedish team with if the rosters get mixed around. Obviously, we know Flush is taking a bit of a break from things right now. So I think Cloud9, as much as there are a lot of youngsters, their brand power, they should never have to take that risk, in my opinion.
There's one guy in chat said about Wardell signing 2-year contract was dumb as shit ever. It depends obviously which way you look at it, but Cloud9 wouldn't really have a problem buying that out. Wouldn't it be nice though if Cloud9 could sit there and buy Steel out of prison? In that sense, like Valve, just please allow him. We will pay. That'd be a dream fucking world for us to live in.
To be fair, dude, it's like Valve are racking up money on CS:GO like in fucking insane numbers. So
it's just sat there.
Exactly. It's
just one thing quickly, like on that concept, Banks. That,
yes.
Like I know you're not saying it like in a malicious intent, but a lot of people in the community will say this, and they say, "Oh, Valve does nothing. You know, they don't really contribute." Just to think about Valve and their model, and the more I think, the more I talk to other people, I definitely think they should do more in certain regards. But it's also, you think about how Counter-Strike got to the point it's in today. Anyway, it was a community-driven and community-grown thing. Yeah. And you think about it, if they put both their hands deep into this thing and they really take control over it, we might actually lose all those things that I was talking about earlier. Mm-hmm. Look at models of games that are completely driven by the game developer. You've got Riot,
shit games like
Legends.
Overwatch.
You've got Overwatch, for example, with Blizzard, who are just, you know, scaring non-endemic sponsors away from our industry potentially forever. Yeah. So you have all of these things. Yeah, which are scary prospects. Now, do I think that Valve should, you know, do something about the anti-cheat? Yeah, but more people just going to make more cheats? Yeah, that's not the right attitude to have. But what I mean is, Valve are really efficient with their time. Valve are very efficient with what they do. Now, there's lots of. I would love it if we had an operation, you know, every 3 months. I would love it if we had a more defined calendar with major windows. Those kind of things. They're still quite hands off, right? Because the rest of those things are still controlled. Sure, the fucking operation thing, they have to make the content. That's a lot of work. But I think that'd be really cool to stimulate our newer viewers. But Valve, like, Think about the best esports in the world, and I don't really give a fuck about your internal biases here. There are several esports in the world that have been around for a very long time. StarCraft 2 is like up and down because it depends on how Blizzard want to shit the bed with that game. But you think about StarCraft 1 and how long that stayed alive just because of Korea.
But that was also because Blizzard didn't fucking put their hands on it.
Yeah, Dota is another one. Dota was literally a modification, and so was Counter-Strike, of a different game. And then we, like as a community, are the reason these games are the most popular games in the world. It's not because we have a game developer fucking straddling us and fucking us every night. It's because
I prefer what we have now. Like what I was saying is definitely not that I want them to fucking jump in and do like they're doing nothing. I think actually we've had the best couple of years from Valve in quite a while, right? Look at they're even having a bit of fucking meme phone interaction on Twitter. I know that doesn't do anything for the game itself, but I mean at least they're fucking engaging with us. At least they're involved. Just look at some of the changes that are going on now of economy. We had a fucking whole like 30-minute debate on it because we care so much about it, but they're not doing things that completely fuck our game. Like Blast just played with that system and it didn't destroy it.
Yeah, they definitely just prefer hands off.
Yeah, and hands off is better, right? When we were first playing Counter-Strike, I remember turning up and going to events, and every single event would have a different format. Obviously, went for MR12, MR15s. I've done MR9 fucking way back when, like having 16k money. I think that was the CGS days, wasn't it, Chad? When it was all that shit.
What a fucking joke that was.
Yeah, but I mean, like people experimented, and that's how we got to where we are now. Valve do not need to be hands-on, and I think Valve, if they were hands-on, it would be to not a detriment because they're smart people, but if it was too hands-on, we wouldn't have such a cool fucking open circuit where we see a lot of these tier 2, tier 3 events. Yeah. Now, some people are going to make the argument, and I've seen it before, where they're like, oh, well, it stops all the scammy things, like the UM League, for example, right? Where people don't get paid and shit like that, but actually this shit would still involve, it would still happen regardless of what Valve could try to do. And the same thing like you were saying about cheats there. What was that guy in fucking China that got arrested and put to jail because he was literally making all the fucking cheats? Like, if people want to make cheats for stuff, it's the same as hackers. If they want to get in your fucking PC, they get in your fucking PC. You can have every best antivirus software in the world. These fuckers are smart as shit. They're on their job.
The thing is, it's back and forth, right? They develop a new cheat, the anti-cheat figures out a way to counteract it, and then it's just like, it keeps going back and forth, right? Keeps evolving, and that's just how things work.
Yeah,
it's just impossible to get ahead of it. Basically, that like there's no getting ahead of the curve when you don't know what's the next thing they'll try to exploit. Basically,
I know we're like could all be extremely biased, but I can't name another esports that not in just terms of longevity, because there's ones that have been around a lesser time but still have great viewership and great events. But there is nothing as unique and as engaging and as overall kind of as like tactically in depth as a game as you can get as Counter-Strike, and that's because things aren't forced upon us. Valve didn't go and put out like, you must play 1 minute round time and you must only have 5 seconds to buy, and like you can only use these weapons or shit like that. Like, this was all discovered ourselves. Where you look at like, say, I don't know, League of Legends, for example. I'm not well versed in where League of Legends is at now, and it's a great game, it's very popular, but all that stuff was massively defined, right? Everyone had that kind of stuff given. Like,
the thing is,
theirs
like,
didn't grow from a grassroots in the same way as what CS did, because when CS first came around at the very beginning, there was no tournaments, there was no, like, everyone just did what they wanted to do.
Yeah, that's not even close. It's just like everybody has to have a license from Riot to even do like any tournaments and everything like that.
Yeah.
You don't really have such an easy way as you do in Counter-Strike to get your way into the top.
I can run a tournament tomorrow if I've got fucking $1 million. If someone wants to give me some money, we will make a tournament, and
that's the thing. Like the opportunities that you get in CS are just like unrivaled compared to any other game, basically, just because of how indirectly, but because of how Valve have been hands off and not try to work into our system too much.
I want to make we're going to go on another tangent here. I'm sorry, everybody. These things are just on my brain right now. My brain is dying, so it's just spewing all these things. I used to be somebody who would be an advocate for this when I was a player as well, and that was like having an international for Counter-Strike, and I see a lot of people still want that. But just so you guys are aware, what Valve did with Dota is actually fuck the rest of their circuit, and that's why they're now taking steps backwards, and they're having to facilitate their miners a major system, and they're having to do all these other different things with points to make teams to attend certain events to be able to go to the bigger ones, because They actually just made it so that you only wanted to attend one event a year, and that's
what StarSeries would do, right? They just rock up to the invitation,
just win
the 20 million, and then disappear for the year, and then come back again and do it all over.
Exactly. So the international as a concept is amazing, and our majors are starting to. The more teams that get added, sure, maybe you dislike the fact that there's segregation between like the first 16 teams and the second 16 teams, or the first 16 and then the second 8, or whatever you want to look at it like that. You can obviously, there's so many things to critique, and you can sit here and talk about a million different formats and pull them out of your ass like Kane did with that article he wrote, which actually has no contextual basis for what this bit. Mate, I can write an article about a format. I can build you the greatest format ever.
He was
it doesn't
high
mean we can have
as shit when he wrote that.
The point of this is that I think that we're kind of like, if you compare us to Dota had the international, which is cool and grabs all the eyes and stuff, and it doesn't have the word terrorist, so it's always going to, get Mercedes as a sponsor when Counter-Strike can't. Yeah. But Counter-Strike still has the best circuit. Like, it might be really demanding, but at the same time, nobody makes me go to every tournament. Nobody makes the players besides the owners go to every tournament. And if that's negotiated in their contract, then they sign to do that, right? So,
Mouse sports.
I just think that, like, I like our majors could have more prize money, but you wouldn't want it to have too much more, because then what you start to do is you start to put a lot of pressure on the TOs, and then you start to like make them redundant, and then if they don't have enough money to run tournaments all year round, then we lose our circuit, right? And then you've got another thing, like people are like, oh, why don't Valve do 128 tick matchmaking servers? I understand why you want that, but why would Valve go around and put a gun to the fucking head of ESEA and FACEIT and all these other people that have popped up and made businesses off of their game and have done so much for their game and have like
fuck you, we've got better now.
It's like the Valve would just come along and go, well, you did all the hard work, you guys established all of these things, and we'll just fucking take it away from you. Yeah. Why would Valve do that? It's like, you think about it as like a relationship between all these different parties coming together, right? I understand all these things that are problems. I understand the cheaters in matchmaking. I understand that we'd all like more content every now and again, and there's definitely a trade-off to be made there, but like, I'm just getting old because I'm no longer a biased motherfucker, but I'm starting to look at things with like more of an open view, and I'm still going to ask questions. And like about this economy thing, I'm one of the most vocal people about it because of what I addressed earlier. I'm always going to stand there opposed to certain things, and I'm always going to, like, even if I'm wrong, in hindsight, I'm happy to say I'm wrong, just so everyone's aware. I just like, we need to just be critical thinkers because we're in a pretty good position. Anyway, we got
a couple of questions. We're in a really good fucking position, by the way, in terms of like, look at where our esports is. We're in 2019. Look how many events there are. Look how many people make a living from this and how it all works out. And like, it's been a rough ride at times, but it's made it at the end, and it's made it because of the community and because decisions being made. Now, one thing I've got to ask you guys is, I don't know if this was said or not, this is what someone just wrote in chat. It says, what about the thing Device said? He said, rename the teams to defense and offense to get all the sponsors. Like,
you still shoot people with it. Look, dude, I can see like that being the first step, but the problem is you're still shooting people with an AK. Like, that's the thing. Like, there's still guns. That is a massive issue globally, or just like a massive point of discussion globally, and that is a problem for a lot of these endemic sponsors. So like, I feel like that would just, like, if we start there, we're just going to continue on to like changing the guns to some BB, whatever, Nerf guns and shit like that.
Paintball bullets, yeah, exactly.
Or some shit. Like, dude, CS 1.6 had the paintball thing, and that was actually pretty fun, by the way.
Yeah.
But
CS Online had that as well.
I feel like to attract these endemic sponsors, you would have to change the game completely. Like the way it looks and the way.
But also, we're not short of money. And look at this. Some teams don't even care for the prize money anymore, right? The salaries are there, and it's more the competition. Like, I think you mentioned it before, Chad, on one of the shows, is how many tournaments now where the prize money is not the focus in promoting the tournament, right? It is the teams. It is where we've got stuff going on. It's what's happening in terms of the actual show that's being taken part of. And yes, 500k is an amazing amount of money and all that stuff. These players will want to win it, but there is so much money being regularly put around here that I don't really think we need to be like getting these non-endemic sponsors. Maybe for teams and organizations, yes, but you look at Cloud9, they fucking did it off the back of other games as well.
Yeah, look, it'd be nice, right? But it's not the be all and end all.
Yeah, we're out here starving.
Yeah, it definitely would be nice, but like when you see the Dota events with Mercedes and they're fucking all rolling in and all their shuttles are Mercedes and the MVP prizes are Mercedes, you kind of sit there and you go, fuck, that'd be pretty cool. Like I'm not even a player and I still I'm like, fuck, that's a pretty sick little thing to have. But it's not a bad. I get what you're saying, Striker. Like it's like, where do we draw the line? But like now, I very rarely find myself saying like terrorist, right? Like I will say it, and I have said it, and like when I scripted some of those videos for ESO, like I said terrorist, but I say more so like T and CT, right? So it's kind of already neutered in a way.
It's not like I'd have an issue with like saying offense defense. I do already. Like when I write whatever post-match reports and stuff, like I often like put offense and defense as a synonym for terrorists and counter-terrorists, whatever. I already use it myself. It's just, like where is that going to lead?
Yeah, you're right.
I don't think it would help. I don't see it helping. That's the thing.
All right, we got another. This is actually, we didn't really discuss this. Actually, we did do the IGLs for FaZe, didn't we?
Golden was one, Pronax was one, but then Chris J was in the mix for the conversation. I don't know where we ended up landing on it.
Would MSL ever work on that?
Well, Chris J was just a hypothetical. Obviously, he's kind of locked it into most sports now that the new lineup came together. So that was just I was just curious about that one. I don't think it would probably ever happen. Not in the nearest future, anyway.
I don't think MSL would work because he's always been like very structured. I'm not saying that he can't change from that, but in a lot of his teams, he was always very structured. But
would that work with what Yanko's trying to do potentially?
Maybe that's why we did land on Flusher, right? Because Flusher would bring the free-flowing style, and then Yanko could bring in the structure. I think that's where we kind of landed on that one. I think that if they want to stay with Nico as the in-game leader, this is the player who I'm trying to buy. Fucking Volder. That's who I'm buying if I was FaZe.
He's surely not going to be able to buy because that North lineup's surely just going to implode.
Probably.
Look, at some point, like if Olaf just keeps shitting the bed like this, because he's had some of his worst tournaments of his life, with Blast being one of them. He had another really bad tournament. Now we could be looking at more than just one change in FaZe. So it's just that nothing's out of the realm of possibilities. And Valde is definitely. I feel like if they wanted to make a change in like one of the carry players, Valde would probably be somewhere towards the top of that list. Just he hasn't really been their target, because they obviously wanted like a replacement for an in-game leader who couldn't really get that. Got a Dren because he was available. So that's pretty much it.
Oh, do you want? We could do this as a top 3 at some point, but it says ranked top 5 IGLs at the moment. Ooh.
That could be a fun one to do.
We
won't do one right now.
We're gonna save that one. So, PanRX, thank you very much for that. I will use that as one of our top 3s. I might turn it into a top 5. That's quite a good one. This one, Chad, I think you're gonna love. So, map pools. Any thoughts on having more than 7 in a map pool?
We literally just talked about this last episode.
Yeah.
Did we?
Yeah. We did speak about it. I don't think he was here. It was either the last one or the
there you go. That's why. Yeah, I was away.
So if you want to find out and listen to that conversation, because we did actually go in depth about it, anchor.fm/HLTV.
Ooh, yes.
Yeah, head over there. You can listen to. We have all the recordings, podcasts. You can listen to on everything that you could possibly consider. But we already did touch in this, and I spoke about the potential for having maybe like Abbey or Vertigo or these kind of maps come in. And I think that we should balance Counter-Strike through maps and not necessarily through always changing things like the economy and guns. Because maps stimulate newer ideas. So we've kind of touched on it. I go more in depth in a previous podcast. I apologize for not being able to answer to you now, but we have more things. I saw someone ask a question about the B double doors thing earlier.
Yes, you tweeted out about it.
Yeah, and just if anybody is interested, the reason that I say that is because right now the B bomb site on Dust 2 is pretty restrictive in the way that you can hold it.
It's the hardest fucking bomb site to retake in CSGO.
So you can get flashed off it very easily when holding middle, and B bomb site you can get swarmed quite easily. We saw that happen to Ents quite a lot at the major. And the reason that I say turn the doors around, now I'm talking about the B double doors, not the mid double doors. So basically you can sit on B hill, that's what I call it, outside B, and you can AWP or look from B hill towards upper dark tunnels. Now we know that there's a way that you can actually jump smoke from catwalk to cover off B doors. We've seen teams do that in the past, and that could negate this whole situation, but you have to play differently. But in 1.6, and I know you're saying, oh, but why won't this? Basically what I'm saying is, guys, this just adds another layer to hold the map. You could hold from outside the bomb site completely, and you could be more mid-heavy. So a thing called NOA stack, you probably hear us when we talk about it in cast. You stack 2 players mid doors to cover off catwalk. You could do more mid-heavy setups. you could take more risks around mid by having like a player cat, 2 players mid, or something along those lines, and have one guy like playing retake B or outside B, because it's much more difficult to walk all the way up and smoke and go. You normally would like flash or do your limp smoke or something like that, and the player AWPing from doors should be able to catch you, or it would obviously be a lot of cool like things that'll change. But I think turning the doors around doesn't take anything away from the map, and I think it just adds more layers of cool things. And I think that Valve would be on board with a change like that. It would just need to be like kind of floated to them, because they're all about having like more different ways. They like differences of things, and it's a very simple change. It's nothing which is too crazy, at least in my opinion.
You know what I was thinking about recently? Because like, sure, this has been like one of the biggest features of Dust 2, which is the mid fight, basically, like the AWP to AWP, basically being able to spot. But obviously that's also been a problem because of the doors and being spammable, and just like the CTs basically having to expend utility instantly in the round just to be able to cross the B bomb site. What if we just like basically remove the suicide? What do you call it? I call it the suicide, but I'm not sure what it's actually called.
It's got a million names, yeah.
Yeah. But basically the dark under T spawn, basically like remove that completely so that the up cannot just like spot CTs crossing, because what that would do would also allow CTs to be aggressive on mid from the start of the round without like being extremely careful about it, and then very easily punished for it by the op. And it would just change the dynamic of the map a lot, with CTs being able to cross the lower dark a lot easier, basically without being punished. And it would just like give CTs a lot more options in their aggressions, because Dust 2 is currently a map where it's probably the hardest to do, because there are no real openings where you can go without instantly being spotted, without instantly being able to be punished. That I feel like would be an interesting change to Dust 2 that would really change how the dynamic of the map is.
Yeah, you could get a lot more lower dark control. You could posture a lot forward up middle and taking fights towards back of cat. That have to use a lot more utility. It would be a lot more about the
fight for middle, basically, which is now basically like given away to T's instantly.
Yeah, you throw that Xbox smoke and you throw your back of cat flash to push anybody away from picking from catwalk, and you basically got mid, right? So yeah, it's definitely an interesting thought. I think maybe the standoff point there, the reason that it might not happen is because it would be such a huge change to a map like Dust 2. I'm not opposed to it. I think it would change the dynamic for sure. Because you are right. Right now, most of our things are really long heavy based off spawns or B leans, mid to Bs. With this here means a lot more real estate. The CTs might even consider playing catwalk a little bit more often, right? Because if you can know that they have to use a bit more utility to take middle, at least in the infancy stages, you can posture a bit more forward and hold on to that territory for a little bit longer. So yeah, it would have more layers, that's for sure.
Yeah. I was just like a random thought that I had like yesterday or something. 'Cause I was thinking about this like in regards to how Dust 2 seems to be a map that nobody can truly master, just because of how risky it is basically constantly for the CTs.
I think Natsu just confirmed what we were talking about earlier about the invites. He just said those invites have been issued prior to us being near a shortlist to be considered.
Yeah,
so that's what we spoke about earlier. That like a lot of this stuff, like it may seem like the tournament just crops up, guys, but the tournament has months and months and months of planning. So it obviously kind of sucks in a way, but flights cost a lot of money.
As an example, I've known at least one group of the Pro League for about 2 months now, or at least like at the start of the major, I think I heard one of the groups for Pro League, and it's still not announced. So let's just say that Pro League has actually been, as far as I know, it's the groups have been decided a long time ago.
Yeah, they'd have to, right?
So that's just an example that I can give you instantly.
All right, we call it a day there, boys. Are we done?
We've done 2 hours and 43 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. 2 hours.
On strong. That's probably a record now. It took us not to have Prof
actually, when you weren't here, was similar.
Okay. Well, I can't throw Prof under the bus for that one. Thanks, Striker. Fuck you. Any opportunity to do it. Well, that's another episode all done and dusted with. We hit episode 12 already. Do we know when we'll be back for?
We'll try and do Wednesday if we can in the evening to do our draft, but we'll advertise that, and we'll probably see if we can get some.
We'd probably just do like a short live thing though at that point though.
We'll see if we can get some more people people on board for it. See if we get some other interesting characters of the community on to
Look,
do a bit of fun.
I still don't know if I'm even you're going to StarSeries, right? Chad.
If I get a visa.
That's I'm in the same boat with you. I'm still waiting for my visa as well, and I have 3 days.
That will be fun.
Yeah, that's going to be curious.
It's always fun.
We'll see about that.
Visas.
Yeah.
Ruins esports ever so slowly.
But the problem is, like, it doesn't make sense to do it in the middle, so we're probably going to have to wait until, like, April 8th, 9th. Probably 9th because of us coming back from China on the 8th.
Yeah, there'll be a bit of a break. There's definitely
we're definitely going to have, like, almost like a 2-week break now.
Okay, cool. So we'll keep you guys up to date on when the next show will be, but we should be doing a fantasy draft for you guys either way. But episode 12 is all done. Lucas, you can do what I've asked, because if Prof is still in the channel, your opinions mean nothing, as always. You failed better. You're very shit at the fantasy. Your opinions are irrelevant. See you next time.